birthday or something. It's not actually his birthday. No, it's not. Yeah, we should. You would totally do it.
Birthday to you. Dear Scott.
Somebody started a rumor.
How rumors go.
Hey, welcome everybody to Highland City Council. Today is Tuesday, August 18th, 2026, and we're going to start with an invocation by Councilmember Rice, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Rodella.
Our kind, eternal Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for our many blessings and for the privilege we have of living in Highland. We're grateful for our homes, food, and clothing, and the many wonderful things we enjoy. We are grateful, Father, for a constitutional republic. And we ask a blessing on all of its leaders, including this council, that we would make wise and appropriate decisions. We ask at this time, Father, for rain. Please fill our aquifer. Please help us with this drought. We are again grateful for all that we have and for each member, and may they know of our love for each of them. And we say these things, Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's okay. Thank you. And just a reminder before we get started that we here in Highland City believe in treating everybody with civility and respect, and would ask you to act accordingly, council as well. We're going to start off with our unscheduled public appearances. So we don't have any public hearings on our agenda for tonight. So if you have anything you would like to talk to us about, now is your time. I've got a few comment cards I was given before the meeting, so we're going to start with those, and then we'll move on to others if there are any. So we'll start out with Bryce Smith, and then Lindsay Stanford. Bryce, who I have not seen in 20 years. So good to see you. Welcome.
Hello, Council. I've been here in Highland City as a resident for 21 years, and I must admit, I'm very blessed and lucky to be in this city. Thank you. I am also a general contractor, a home builder, and I'm here tonight to share some thoughts regarding the ADU and the setbacks. I have a real-life situation I can share with you if there is a PDF or the map of those. I have a scenario where I have a lot in Williamsview. It's a large half-acre lot. It's a R40 classification. This particular lot is on a corner. And the first slide you're looking at, if I was to build a detached garage, no living space in it, just a detached garage to park cars, boats, whatever you have in that, the current zoning allows me to go 20 feet to the property that abuts up to, you know what I'm saying, next to 6,000 West. I'm also allowed to go 10 feet to the rear property. That would be the property line between my home and my future neighbor. Now, this home has not been built. I did some due diligence before I purchased this lot, expecting to build this detached garage. And then I had a little thought, well, maybe I'd do an ADU since the state is mandating allowing for those things. And so after talking to planning and zoning, I learned that the detached garage setbacks, by putting an ADU or an apartment in it, would change drastically. And the next slide you see is what happens with what I'm hearing is proposed. I'm hearing that now it's proposed that I do a 30-foot setback off of 6,000 West and a 30-foot setback off of the rear property. It would not allow for me to have this proposed ADU fit. Number one, it hits my home. Number two, I'm required to be at least 6 feet away from the home. And as you can see, it doesn't even fit right on the lot. It makes the lot unusable. I am concerned about this, given the fact that if the state is mandating residents to have this, I don't see how our residents that have quarter acres or 30 acres, which I admit there's not a lot, I don't see how these residents are going to be able to have an accessory dwelling unit added to their property. Now, this is a brand new home that hasn't been built yet, and I know there's residents that currently have detached garages or maybe other outbuildings they want to add an apartment in. They would not be able to make it work based on what I'm hearing. I'm thinking the only way that this would work would be for those residents in the city that have 3/4, maybe an acre. To me, it doesn't make sense. Usually those size of lots perhaps could be of a value of such that maybe those residents don't need to house children or grandparents or parents. So my thoughts is I would encourage the council to look at leaving each zone, be it R40, R30, R20, whatever the detached garage and I'm going to call it an accessory dwelling unit is, leave it how it is and not require 30 feet. I'm okay with the 25-foot height. I think that makes sense. But to require such a huge distance from the backyard of the property line just doesn't make sense to me. What's interesting is it's allowing to have the detached garage be 20 feet away, but when you're putting an apartment in it, it's all of a sudden 10 more feet off of a main road makes a big difference. To me, it doesn't and shouldn't make a big difference. My 3 minutes, I think, are up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, we've got Lindsay Stanford, and then after that, we have James Cahoon and Jim Smith. Always an extra thank you to somebody who brings little kids with. Not easy.
My 4-year-old is having a lot of emotions right now.
Oh, I'm sure. I am too. Yeah, if you just want to share your name for our recorder and then love to hear your comment.
Yeah, my name is Lindsay Stanford. I live in the Alpine Country Club subdivision, and I'm here to talk about the golf cart crossing and adding a sidewalk along the golf cart crossing. We sent an email to you guys this morning with pictures just to kind of give you a reference for what area we're talking about. So there's about 216 feet where the sidewalk ends, and then there's nothing and the sidewalk picks back up. Along this as well, the road narrows to about 21 feet. And then on either side, where there's no sidewalk, there's like gravel, but it's mostly been overgrown by weeds. And these weeds are, 3+ feet high. They're prickles, there's poison ivy, there's absolutely no way that you can walk along this side of the road. And so in order to get back to that back loop, you have to get into the road, and the road is narrow. There's a blind corner just past Mitchell Ditch, which is like a creek that goes beyond it. And so that's the issue that we're having in our neighborhood. We've got a lot of little kids. I've got my kids, and then we've got people who are in wheelchairs and strollers, and kids who, walk to the junior high every day have to get into the road. And then also beyond that, along Durley Drive, which is the road that you go to the clubhouse entrance of the golf course, it's, you get golfers who are speeding, and it's really just a really unsafe area to be able to walk. And so the weeds being over 3 feet, that causes a fire hazard as well. And we've talked to the golf course. I've talked to the manager of the golf course, Ben Hay, because there was a question regarding who owns that part of the side of the road, if it's the golf course or if it's the city. It's not really clear on any plat maps. And he said that the golf course is currently having their property surveyed, and it's going to be recorded with the county so that you can have an exact where that property boundary is. And the other issue that I've heard from, I emailed Chris about it, and he was talking about how we know that there's a lot of areas that need sidewalks in Highland City, but we're hoping that you guys can prioritize this just because of the narrowness of the road and all of the weeds on the side, and people are being forced to walk in the street in order to go into that back loop. And this road is the only entrance and exit for the people who live. I think there's 34 houses back there. So all of the kids and all of the older people with strollers are being forced to walk in the middle of the road. So at the very least, if you can add it to your list and higher on the priority list as far as putting in the sidewalk, as well as like curb and gutter, and cleaning up the weeds. At the very least, if you could clean up the weeds and grade it so that we can at least walk on that side of the road and not have to get into the road, is what we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cahoon. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've been to one of these. I'm ashamed that I haven't. So I've been a resident here for 25 years. Back in 2005, this same golf cart crossing we're talking about was a narrower access. And we came to Highland City, and they blessed our lives because they listened to us and they expanded that. They put in a culvert. They talked to the various parties. And so now that culvert is wider. And so at the time, I think they paid like $30,000 or $40,000, and they took care of us. And we were really grateful. As we left, though, we had a kind of a handshake wink about let's put the sidewalk in on that side. So the Highland City already knew back then, I don't know if you keep notes that far back, of who the players were. And so Lindsay has kind of done a little bit of the homework to find out who the owners are, who the stakeholders are. And Mrs. Rice, thank you for coming out and talking to us. I've talked to a couple of city council members. Doug Courtney, thank you for letting me visit with you as well on it. But the urgency of this is because it narrows, I call it, they run the gauntlet. So these kids on bikes, they'll be following the sidewalk because we say stay on the sidewalk because it's blind coming around that thing. And when they get off the sidewalk, they get into the road and they're just kind of brain dead. 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds are just gliding along, and it's kind of a hidden curve. And so the scary part of that is, we keep pushing them to stay on the side of the road. Well, I've repaired, because of puncture weeds, I've repaired bike tires that they've gotten, you chew them out and get off the road. And so, anyway, not to re-say it, but you're going to hear this a few times probably from some of the neighbors, but the hope is that at a minimum, I get that we don't have a lot of budget. They told us that in 2005, but they came up with it, right? Here's the thing we need. We need to have some hard surface, asphalt, whatever it is, so that we can get off the road and get out of harm's way, because that sidewalk comes like this, and then it's weeds for, what's the distance? 216 feet, and then it's sidewalk again. And so they're not going to get in the weeds. So if we can just harden that surface, then, in the meantime of finding the money for this, hopefully you can find it. We would so appreciate it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Jim Smith, and then Terry Perez. Good evening.
It's nice to put the names with the faces. I sent you all a letter 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that kind of outlines my position and our position. But just to add a little more information, this is a picture of some of the condition of that road. I'll pass this over to you after I'm through, and you can have it. But my property ends right here, and the road essentially is narrowed down to 1 lane at this point. It's a racetrack for Amazon and other delivery trucks that go through that neighborhood. And without being a harbinger of doom, it's only a matter of time before something happens, and with the number of little kids and so forth. We moved here 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. We love the community. We love the neighborhood. There's 34 families in that little section of Alpine Loop and West Country Club Drive. And we've really, really enjoyed living here. and hope that something can be done to help us retain or get the position of and the condition of this road system back in sync with the rest of the community, which is really beautiful. Thank you very much for your attention.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming. Yes, please. Yeah, if you just want to start it down here and we can pass it down. Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll get one down to you, Stephanie. Terry Perez. Oh, they're all different. Let's start them with you, Kim, and then you can look at them and then pass them down. Back to Stephanie.
Thank you for having me. My name's Terry Perez. We've lived here for almost 29 years, back in the circle there. I'm not going to recap on what's already been said, but I would like to let you know that you have handicapped people back in there. I'm a 30-year disabled American War veteran. We walk through there. We've had scout projects to try and beautify that and make it better for passage. We would really appreciate this being taken care of in a timely manner because it is a very big safety issue. And I would hate to see a child or somebody injured coming through there. Cars fly through there all the time looking for the golf course entrance. It's pretty scary, and especially in the winter. So I don't want to take any more of your time, but thank you for having me.
Thank you. Did you say you're a veteran?
I am.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, those are all the comment cards I have, but if there's anybody else who is interested in commenting or addressing the council, now would be the time. Hi.
Hello, for the record, my name is Christopher Pagel, and I just have 3 certificates of special recognition. Chief's not here, but I'll turn them over to Erin, and hopefully she can pass them along for Officers Michael Ballman, Von Dukran, and Norman Robinson. And I'll just quickly read what they say on behalf of the Friends of Highland Glen Park Pond. Friends of Highland Glen Park Pond in Highland, Utah hereby recognize these officers of the Lone Peak Police Department for their leadership and exemplary service to the community. Their support for community and law enforcement engagement and partnership is to be committed and sets positive examples for others. So I've got those for those 3 officers.
Thank you. That's so nice. Much appreciated. They're great. Thank you, and thank you again for everything you're doing. Okay, yes. Do you want to come on up to the front? Yeah, to the microphone. Let us know your name. Nah, you're good.
The only thing is, Terry brought something up. When the golfers miss the turn to the country club and they're trying to get to their tee times, James Cahoon, they come rifling, because we're a loop. So they go sailing into the loop and come back out of the loop. And so that's always scary that, you know, they're kind of flying because they're behind trying to get to that tee time. And so anyway, I just wanted to put an exclamation point on Terry's set on that, because we're like waving them down, slow down, you know. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else? No? If we don't have anything else, we can move on to presentations. So we've got 2 awards that we wanted to hand out tonight, and I'm going to let Councilmember Rodella start with Brandon Bulkman. So if he wants to, Kim, do you want to go up there? Have him,
Yeah.
How do you want to do it?
For those who don't know, this is Brandon Bachman, and we are presenting him as one of our heroes of Highland tonight. Brandon has done extraordinary things for our city. I partake of one of Brandon's projects almost every day, Brandon's Trail. If you haven't been out by Beacons Hill area, he has literally built an entire trail system that is one of my favorite places to run, favorite places for kids to play in, for the neighborhood in its entirety. He has also contributed to the popularity of disc golf in Highland by building that up and contributing to the park and disc golf area there, and as well as Highland Fling as well. And I just love to hear a few words of everything that you did, how it came about of the trail system, the disc golf, and why you decided to put all these efforts into beautifying Highland as well.
Well, we live in such a wonderful place that it's too bad people can't access it. And so there are deer trails already. And so those were just connected. Unfortunately, it's not all access, and so that's why it's not an official trail. But it does offer an opportunity for people to walk through their bicycles if they can deal with the turns. Then our neighborhood decided to have a celebration for the fact we had this wonderful Beacon Hill Park. And they asked me to put together a target practice for Frisbees. And after that, I'm like, that's such a great idea. Why don't we put in some baskets? And the neighbors all purchased baskets from Costco. And then years later, Art Dye, the golf club, the disc golf club, said, you know, we love what you've built there. Would you rather have our baskets? So we used those. And then last year, we put some funds together, about $7,000, and bought brand new baskets. So now it's got 54 holes. That's 18 blue, 18 red, and 9 putting. And people come from all over the place to play. So it's been fun.
So that is a lot of effort, a lot of fundraising and getting the neighborhood together. And we're just really proud of Brendan and all that he's done for our city. And so with that, we'd like to present him with the Heroes of Highland Award right here.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brandon.
Kim, wait, picture. We would love it. Let's have council go up front as well. Council, go ahead, yeah.
Real picture.
I'd like to add that Brandon has become a verb among us, a Brandon Trail. Let's put a Brandon Trail over here.
Thank you, Brandon. I also wanted to recognize Brent and Sue Wallace tonight. I think everybody knows Brent and Sue, but the amount of work and effort that they have put into Highland and our trails and their neighborhoods and into being involved in city council things and being supportive, just being overall a super great couple, a good friend whose living room I have cried in before they even probably considered me good friends. I just wanted to say thank you. It's people like you who are willing to clean up your trails right by your house. And of course, you've done lots of good work as our code compliance officer, which I think everybody appreciates. Just really thank you. So come on up and we'd like to present you with these awards. And Sue, I really appreciate all you've done. I've heard from lots of people that you're the one running all the efforts over there, and it's much appreciated. I always say that one of my favorite things about serving on city council and as mayor is just the opportunity to make all of these new friends who I'm not sure where I would have come in contact with them before, but it is like truly a pleasure and an honor to be able to work with such great people. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our consent items. We have approval of meeting minutes, the ratification of large purchases, and designating a city budget officer. We also have a library board appointment, so we can either take a motion, or if anybody would like to pull any of those items, we could do that as well.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
That was a motion by Councilmember Campbell and a second by Councilmember Rice. And we can go ahead and take a quick vote.
I'm going to have to vote verbally.
Okay.
I've been trying to get hooked on here,
You're
but I
good.
can't.
Me too.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and start with you, Councilwoman Rodella,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
and then the other votes. Perfect, that passes 5-0. I think we also have, do we have Rhett in the audience? We'd like to, do you want to just come up and introduce yourself? And welcome to the library board.
Push? Is that better? Hit the button that says push to turn the green light. My name is Rhett Weller. My family and I have lived here in Highland for over 8 years now. Yeah, I have 3 little kids. I'm excited to help serve, volunteer, whatever I can. My family and myself, we love the library. I grew up a bookmobile kid because I lived in rural Weber County, and that was the only way to get books. And we didn't have TV, and internet was not even remotely on the horizon at the time. So I'm just looking to give back to whatever I can with the library. I don't know if you want to know a little about myself, but yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Give us
you want
just a
more?
little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So sure. So I have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in finance. I do finance for a software company. My 3 little kids, my daughter had Sevy Day at the junior high here this morning. My 2 little boys are still in elementary school, and so they keep me young. And yeah, I just happy for the opportunity to serve.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to getting to know you better.
Thank
you. Okay, that means we are already moving on to item 4. This is our action item, and this is Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to be with you, Council. This is an item coming out of our ongoing efforts to make code compliance effective and helpful for residents. One of the items for the person that received the award that now has run away, Brent Wallace, has raised this on a couple of occasions. We have in the city municipal code a list of nuisances, things that are harmful or things we don't want in the city, and one of those is cars being parked on private property. And trying to enforce that, we have come up with a lot of people complaining about them. As we looked at the code, it's written in such a way that we can only enforce it, even if it's a bunch of junk cars, if they're also, regardless if they're registered or unregistered, they have to be junked. So you can have 50 unregistered cars, as long as they're functional, we don't have any rules about that. And so that's come up a couple times, and so we have tried to clarify our nuisance rules to clarify the standards. We have a little bit better enforcement capabilities. So what we want to change it to is we still have a 30-day grace period. Essentially, we're not going out running after people who don't register their car in the first month. I sometimes take a few months to register my truck. But in this case, it is 3 different categories of vehicles, including off-highway vehicles, boats, construction equipment. And the 3 categories we're looking at now is if it is wrecked, junked, dismantled, inoperative, or abandoned. So if you take apart your car and you just leave it there for months, that's something that can be considered a nuisance. It doesn't matter if you've registered it or titled it, it just can become a nuisance over time. If you have, separate from that, if you have a vehicle that doesn't have a current registration or title, you have to fix that or get rid of the car. And then finally, a 3rd category of vehicles that are not registered to the owner or to an occupant of the property. We've had this come up a few times of people trying to store vehicles in someone else's property, either for commercial purposes or you just kind of create a storage lot on a property, which is not what the residential zone is for. So now we have these three categories, what we're proposing, that if you do any of these three, not all of them, we can ask you and work with you to get rid of the excess vehicles. Again, there's a 30-day grace period. It's only after it becomes a problem over time. And there is an exception in the code that you can have this, essentially, if you garage it and out of sight, or if you can have two of them if you put it behind a fully screened fence. So you can't have a junkyard, but you can be working on a couple of cars as long as it's out of view of the public and isn't interfering with your neighbors. And so, just so be clear, what these amendments don't address, they don't touch on parking on city property. We're still bringing back an ordinance probably in the next meeting about the town center parking to clarify the code here, so that's still coming. This also doesn't address how many cars that are operable and registered you can have on your property. Highland has never regulated that as far as I can tell, so if that's something the council's interested in, that can become a priority discussion for a future code amendment. So I just want to make sure we're addressing cars that shouldn't be on a property right now, not cars that are functional and can be on a property. So hopefully that distinction makes sense. So with that, that does conclude my presentation, Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see if we have any questions or comments related to that. How about we start with, I don't know. Kim, do you want to start?
I just think excellent presentation, and I appreciate you working with Brent when he does see problems and finding solutions to those. I know this is an issue we have within our neighborhood as well, and there was not a way in order to regulate it or help with those neighbors. And so I think this is a good work about to be able to address that.
Dr. Smith?
So I'd like to echo her comments. So in my neighborhood, in fact, I drove past this house on the way to council meeting. We have a family, and the father, he's a good guy, but he's running illegal business. He's never been approved for this, and does car repair. In fact, he's turned his garage, has a lift in there and everything. And I've counted this summer, there's been up to 16 vehicles either on his property or around the property. So the question I have, I mean, that fits under a different ordinance about permitted home businesses. But my question is, when you say they have to be registered, do they have to be registered to the owner? Because obviously most of these cars are registered, but not to the owner.
So that's one of the changes we've made, is to say, not only does it have to be registered, it has to be registered to the owner or to someone who lives at the property, who's occupying it. And there's only a minor exception to, if you get a lease or a rental, that's fine. But it's specifically for that situation, council member, where you have a lot of other people's cars on your property for a long period of time, that will no longer be allowed with this change.
So I guess the question I have is, how do we enforce this? I mean, I've tried to be real nice as a neighbor. I've let this go on for quite a while, but I've sent letters and we've talked, and that it's not changed. I've complained to the city. I'm not aware of anything happening. So do we have a code compliance person besides Brent that's going to do this, or what's the plan?
Soon we will. As the council approved the full-time position with this year's fiscal budget, we've actually extended an offer to someone. So he'll be coming on board full-time beginning of September. And so he'll do some training with Brent and be taking over. I believe Brent is very well aware of the situation you're talking about and is working on that. This is one of the things that will help us resolve that.
So they'll be approached by the code compliance, and then I guess the question is we give them the 30-day leeway and different things to change. What if they don't?
So if it escalates, there's a couple of routes you can go with nuisances. One is you can always do the criminal citation route. The other route with nuisances particularly is the city can actually pay to remove nuisances and to abate them. This often comes up with like weeds on vacant lots. The city can actually go in and clear them and then charge it to the person's tax bill. It's kind of a more extreme remedy. So our approach always is, of course, to go talk with the person, work with them, let them know. Oftentimes, and I think Brent could attest to this, once we have a code that's very clear about what they can and can't do, we can say, this really isn't allowed. there's a gray area about whether you can do this or not. This is not allowed. You have to stop. Most people begin to work on coming into compliance. But if that doesn't work, we do have kind of more forceful remedies if we need to. And we're constantly looking at how we can improve our process. I think having this full-time planner tech and code compliance person will continue that effort.
Well, and I appreciate that, because I have no problem with people, obviously fixing their own cars and different things. That's great. I think it's when it becomes a nuisance. For this particular line I'm talking about, it's on a corner. There's a lot of young kids there. I personally have almost gotten a wreck twice because we don't have the triangle there so you can see cars coming. And I just think there's a lot of liability, and I tried to express that to this person. I said, hey, you're taking a lot of liability on yourself. So I think sometimes we need to kind of explain that to people too, because if there was a serious accident or somebody got ran over and you're against the code in the city, it increases your liability, I would think.
I would agree. And I'll say one of the things I will miss when Brent is not our code compliance officer, he is very good about explaining the kind of practical reasons why you want to be in compliance. He explains in a way that people really take to. So I'm hoping he'll be able to transfer that to our new full-time person.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Courtney, questions, comments?
Just a comment that you really appreciate this work, and one of the worst things that I think we can have in city code is something that's insufficiently or is sufficiently unclear and imprecise, such that we give the impression that we're regulating it, but we've eliminated any realistic ability to do that. So thanks for eliminating that case here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Well, first, I really appreciate these clarifications and exactly what Doug was saying, that when it's nebulous and unenforceable, it really is of no value to the residents. They don't understand it, we don't understand it, and law enforcement doesn't understand it. So this clarification is fantastic. I just wonder, you mentioned that we've had a complaint about the town center. Is that part of this, or that's going to be coming later?
That's probably next council meeting. We'll have a code update on that, and we'll be working, I've already talked with Chief Williams about getting better signage. And so we'll be bringing that in and getting signage so we can start enforcing that. We know the complaint. So we started doing work right around Splash Pad, mostly because the signage there was really clear and easy to enforce. So that was kind of a easy thing to start tackling. And we're still bringing up the more difficult thing of around the businesses in Toscana. So
But we do have a potential resolution coming.
it is in the works. It is a priority.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Rice.
I just appreciate how fast you're working on this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we are ready for a motion, or if anyone has any other comments.
I'll make that motion. I move that the Highland City Council adopt the ordinance amending nuisance regulations for parking and storing of vehicles on private property as discussed in the agenda.
That was a motion by Councilmember Smith. And then, did I hear a second, Councilmember Rice? Okay. Okay, and that passes 5-0. We've got one expedited item, and this is you again.
I'll just stay up here since I'm already standing. This is just the continuation. We had the water-wise landscaping ordinance that got adopted at the last council meeting. The council continued the item specifically to add in some clarification regarding maintenance. So I took a look through a bunch of different cities' regulations on this, and so I tried to put together some maintenance standards and guides, based on what other cities have done, to give a little bit more kind of flesh to the ordinance so people understand what is expected of them. As always, enforcement of this will be primarily done, I think, less of a harsh code compliance, more of an education component of trying to help people figure out how to maintain these and install these types of landscaping in a way that's helpful to them and to the city and to their neighbors. So the proposal, the additions I've made from what you passed last council meeting was just maintenance threw in a reference to the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, because that also has a maintenance component to it. And then have specific maintenance requirements, what you might expect. Pruning, weeding, fertilizing, and mowing, removing and replacing dead, diseased, or dying vegetation, removing uncontrolled weed and volunteer plants. As an aside, I learned what the term volunteer plant was from another city. It means a plant that volunteers to grow in your garden because it drifted in somehow. I didn't know that term, so I thought that was a fun one.
A new term for weeds.
Yes. So you have weeds that are kind of noxious, and then volunteers that are weeds in the sense of you didn't want them to grow there in the first place. So it's saying keep out, maintain your gravel so it doesn't grow in there. Mulch, this is just recommended just for any kind of water-wise landscaping, is to keep it 3 inches deep because that helps control weeds and helps keep the plants you want alive because it restores water inside of the mulch. And then the clearing of site triangle areas, keeping waste, refuse, litter, things that blow into the yard. And then adjusting, repairing, and maintaining your irrigation system. And I specifically added in there, checking your sprinklers, making sure you don't have the overspray onto hardscapes. So you really aim it toward where things are living. And then just clarify that also we expected a plan to be submitted for landscaping with any non-commercial or non-residential development, which was already a requirement, but thought it might be helpful to have in there as well. And so with that, that is my presentation. Those are the items I thought might address it, but I'm happy to make any changes the council thinks are appropriate.
Thank you. Any questions about that, Dr. Smith?
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciate your effort to rewrite everything like I asked. Last time it's clear, distinct, perfect, and it's simple. The only question I had is, why did we put the wildland urban interface in this thing? I mean, obviously they need to go through the maintenance here, but so if you're in that and the maps just changed from the state, so we're talking about people up in Twin Bridges and Angels Gate up in the northwest side of the city and a few other places. So does this mean they have to go through and change all their landscaping now? Or is it only when they try to build, or what? Explain that, because that's the only question I had. It seems like that'd be a separate ordinance, or is.
It is, because we did, I think 2 meetings ago now, updated the code to reference the current wildland urban interface, which has certain standards. However, this is kind of the regulation that you're looking at is a catch-all landscaping regulation that applies everywhere in the city. So I thought if someone were going to look at, well, what are Highlands landscaping regulations? You can find one section of code that lists it all, and then just says, and if you happen to be in the WUI area, remember you have to do the WUI maintenance. And it doesn't mean that we're requiring people to change things. We want them to, however, but the WUI code is not a cut down all of your trees next to your home. There is certain distancing. So it says keep trees, but keep them cut 10 feet from your home so that if the tree catches on fire or your house catches on fire, you're not transferring it as easily to the other. Space out your trees well. You can have ground cover all you'd like, but maybe limit your vines growing up the side of your house, because if that burns, it'll go right up to the house. It's that kind of maintenance that the WUI code expects. So this is just giving people if you're looking at our landscaping code, just a reminder that if you're in those few areas of the city, you should be maintaining your landscaping in that way as well.
But if they already have their landscaping in place, and a lot of these homes border on conservation areas where there's a lot of scrub oak, what does that mean for them? Do they have to go in and clean out all the scrub? I mean, we don't want them to do that.
No, it'll be just around their home, and the defensible space is like 30 to 50 feet, depending on severity. There's some that go further, but not for Highland. So these will be areas next to their home, by and large. And so it's not their entire landscaping. And again, we don't want people to rip out their landscaping, especially since a lot of these homes are well established and have beautiful yards and landscaping that they should continue. This will be we will educate people, work with them to get them updated, and then just maintain it that way. Remember to go back in and prune your trees every once in a while to keep that separation from your home. So that's all this was intended to do. I also point out state law actually prohibits cities from requiring private landscaping plans with building permits or certificates of occupancy. I cannot stop a home from being built because they don't give me a landscaping plan, and I don't really want to. We will just use the utility process and the building process for education, just saying, hey, as you're going to build this home, be aware that if you're in the WUI, here's some requirements you have with landscaping. If you're elsewhere, here are some water-wise landscaping tips and things that we would ask you to implement. We're not going to stop someone from, building on their property. We can't under state law.
So the people there in Wui, because they keep changing the maps, do we have specific addresses for people? We're going to notify them they're in the Wui?
That's one of the priorities we have, is to start notifying them. We want to put together, I think, a short help sheet, essentially, of, hey, you're in the WUI, this is what it means for you. And have something so it's not just a scary process, and then let all of them know, because it's maybe 100, 200 residences in Highland, so it's a manageable number that we can actually reach out to them one-on-one and make sure they're aware of it.
And I think it's important that we emphasize that this is a state.
We do, especially anytime it comes to telling residents what they can and can't do in their property. I would rather have it be the state's fault.
Okay. Well, I just think people need to be aware of that.
Yes.
I really hate the acronym. That's all. Councilmember Courtney,
I don't have anything else about this
do you
one.
hate the acronym?
I'm not particularly fond of the acronym.
We have another acronym that we're talking about later, which I think
Yeah.
is just as
I
bad.
love WUI and I love Dadoos, so
Is that all you
I have
have?
no problem with WUI. The only question I have, I counted about 120 homes. That notification, how far out do you think that is? Are we a couple of months away or?
Probably a couple of months away. I'd hope to get it through, the very least before we transition to the new code in January. So
Yeah.
that's something I've been talking with the building department about, training ourselves and then getting the new planner, code compliance officer up to speed, and then starting that. So probably as building slows down a little bit, that'll be the next big thing we educate ourselves and the residents on.
Wonderful. Well, the mayor's home is in WUI, so,
No, it's not.
yes, it is.
We'll talk later.
It is on the map that I looked at. So, and that was about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago?
She's already in compliance.
Councilmember Rice.
I think I've looked at this pretty well, and you've explained it really well, and appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rodella.
Oui.
Can you be a little more energetic? Okay. I think that's all. So we are ready for a motion on that item.
I can do that one. I move that the city council adopt the proposed water-wise landscaping maintenance and planning standards as presented.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And Councilmember Smith. Perfect, that passes 5-0. Aaron, I'm gonna throw you a small curveball here, but I cleared it with Stephanie and Rob. I would like to move the communication items in front of the discussion item because we have Ryan here, our engineer, that we would like to be able to do his presentation and then get back with his family. So if you would like to come up and do your communication item, thanks for coming and staying. Although I don't think you had a choice.
I thought maybe I'd take just a second, if it's okay, Mayor. and-
Sure,
and
absolutely.
introduce Ryan to the
Yeah.
council if they don't already know.
Perfect.
He's our staff engineer. He came on board, about 6 months ago or so? 5? So, yeah, we made him do a presentation before a 6 months probationary period is up, just to see. So no pressure or anything. But one of the first assignments that I gave Ryan as he came on, I think he's done a pretty good job, is to kind of do a review of the sidewalk areas within the city. He's gone through and he's made kind of a list and some prioritization projects for this, and I'll let him just go ahead and present what he's.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you said, I'm Ryan Seeley, staff engineer. More or less excited to be here, but I am excited about the work I did on this, and so let's talk about sidewalk prioritization.
Let's do it.
So here is a simplified map of the city with sections of the sidewalk or sections of roadway that are missing sidewalk either on one side or the other or both, shown in red. And then the schools, within a half mile of the school, and then adjusted for school boundaries such as Highland Elementary doesn't have a school boundary over SR 92, which makes a lot of sense to me. So there's just a quick where all they are. That's not good English, I apologize. So the sidewalks, there's some obstacles to building sidewalks. There is, first of all, a little bit over 44,000 linear feet of sidewalk missing in the town. And some of the big obstacles are right-of-way ownership, if we don't own the land for it yet. Also especially in that case, the cost of surveying and getting the properties surveyed and getting the documents necessary for a change of right-of-way ownership. Curb alignment can be tricky, whether maybe things have been placed in unconventional spots in the past, or just getting it to line up both horizontally on the side of the road as well as vertically to make sure we're not putting in unnecessary or not helpful roadway curbs. With that, of course, comes storm drain. Some areas will need to have storm drain added as we add curb and gutter to be able to put in sidewalk. And that can add quite a bit to a sidewalk project. Elevation differences such as the road being higher than the residential properties or the properties being significantly higher than the road could end up requiring a retaining wall or to move existing retaining walls. And then one of the last big ones is utility conflicts such as power poles or irrigation ditches, which we have quite a few of in town. I did want to note that all new subdivisions are required to put in sidewalk along all frontage.
Can I ask you a quick question, Ryan?
Absolutely.
On your map, so going back to your last point about all new subdivisions, I didn't see anything like in the northern part of our city. So does that mean we're not missing any sidewalk there just because those are mostly new subdivisions?
Correct.
Oh, interesting. Thanks.
So I wanted to have a few examples. This one is, these two are examples of right-of-way. So on the left is Canal Boulevard, or I guess the way that is situated, the east-west running road is Canal Boulevard or Madison Avenue. And so that home right there, it appears that we have right-of-way on the north side, but not on the west side of the property. So there's some of property that we do have and don't have kind of in the same project. And on the right of your screen is 6000 West. Is another example. There are 3 homes that it looks like we already have the right-of-way, and there is sidewalk to the north and south of them, but no sidewalk currently across their frontage. So looking at some of the numbers, cost estimates vary a lot depending on what obstacles are there. So from what I've gathered from past projects or current projects that we have here in town, it's about $150 to $475 per linear foot. So that totals 6.6 million up to maybe $21 million.
So is that for curb and sidewalk?
Correct. That's for full projects.
Okay. And buying an easement if we need to and all that stuff, is it?
It does not include right-of-way acquisition.
Okay.
I didn't have any cost estimates that included that.
I do think that higher price also includes some reshaping of the roadway.
Yes. Yes, thank you. That it does in some areas where the vertical alignment of the curb and sidewalk will require reshaping of the roadway. I do have an example of that that I can show in a moment. So yeah, like we were talking about, the lower cost estimates are, the low end is very simple scopes, such as the picture that's there. This is a spot in town where basically what would be needed is a quick clearing and grubbing, and just base and sidewalk right there along the side of the curb. So that's just one example of where the lower end would be. And then the higher end is, yeah, sidewalk, base, curb, possibly roadway regrading, stormwater infrastructure, utility conflicts, and various surface restorations, such as to private property if we're causing a slope change. So some of these examples, this is 9600 North on the far left, which has already been started to be looked at for a sidewalk project. Councilmember Rice. So here's just one end of it as an example of some of the obstacles that are there that are common throughout the town. There is, right in the way of the curb is a line of power poles. There is, you see the large grate there is part of a irrigation ditch, which we've already, it hasn't been used. It's virtually abandoned, and we're working on the process to fully abandon that officially with the canal company. And then you can see that in the way of where the sidewalk would go, there is a retaining wall, a private retaining wall that would have to be relocated. And it looks like there may be some trees that would need to be relocated on that particular spot. And then of course, we would, with installing that, we would go out to where the edge of existing asphalt is, as long as it met a reasonable grade. The example in the center is our currently ongoing project at 10400 North and 6000 West. It is one of the more expensive, example of one of the more expensive sidewalk projects, because we are regrading the road out to about the center for a large portion of it. We're adding storm drain infrastructure and adjusting what's there. So you can see it's quite a big operation currently. That was a picture from about a week ago that I took. So. And then on the far right, despite my label being odd, that is Country Club Drive, which has been discussed tonight already. And it's just a picture of it. This is an example of an area where there is some elevation challenges, particularly going from the back of Walk. There would be significant elevation in some areas. So just wanted to provide a few examples to help kind of get an idea of the variety. We've been working on taking an initial stab at prioritizing all of the different possible projects and wanted your input. Currently, what we have is within a half mile of school for the Safe Routes to School UDOT program. Within the half mile is kind of their top priority. So that's why that's currently measured that way. Whether the right-of-way is owned by the city or whether it's been offered by a resident, whether it's along a collector road, and the current length of the sidewalk to install. Kind of putting everyone on the spot, but if there's any criteria they have off the top of your heads, I would love to hear it. I got my notepad.
Is that all the slides that you have? Or we have more.
I do have one funding slide.
We'll do all your slides, then we'll go to questions, if that's
Absolutely.
okay. Thank you.
So funding options that we're aware of at this time. I briefly mentioned the Safe Routes to School. It's a UDOT program, provides funding. You can apply every 2 years. According to UDOT, the typical project funding is between $200,000 and $500,000. Priority is given to projects that already have right-of-way acquired and do not have utility conflicts to deal with. And they are part of the funding for the 6000 West project, which received funding in 2025. The other funding option, of course, is to be city funded. I don't necessarily recommend doing all of it at once. That might be difficult. But there's definitely a lot of ways that it could be looked at and And of course, that's up to you guys. So if you have any
Perfect.
questions.
Thank you. Really nice job on your presentation. Thank you. Councilmember Courtney.
One question with the criteria that you were looking at, the length of sidewalk needing to be installed was on there. Does a shorter length or a longer length indicate higher priority?
At this point, it's a longer length.
Just mostly curiosity.
But I think that's, my opinion is there's more economy of scale. You can get more work done for, your unit prices go down. But honestly,
what I was
that's the
thinking
question
too.
that I had for council. I mean, if we had some small sections that would complete, like one roadway is only missing 1 or 2 lots, does it make sense to actually rank that as a higher priority?
Okay.
So let me ask you, Chris, before we go back to Councilmember Courtney, is there information that you need or answers that you need from us coming out of today, or is this just information?
I think it's information, but we'd
Okay.
also, we want to set, or present it to the council that if you would like to look at maybe funding certain projects every year or a certain dollar amount to start adding it into our budget to start knocking down some of these roadways, then I think that would be useful to know once we get to that point in our budget year. I also, we will be having the next application for safe routes is due this March. So we'll be bringing that probably to council for some ideas of where we think those are definitely some areas where we'll probably try to target a larger area of sidewalks. And then we also should have some additional possible road funding available, like on around Strasburg Park, the project that we're doing right now. That funding did not cover sidewalk, but it did cover all of the street and road improvements. So in areas where we have road improvements that are also missing a sidewalk, it might be good to target, maybe look at that funding for some of those projects. And the city could use some of our existing funds to help augment that project for some sidewalks. So we wanted to kind of make the city council aware and some other things that will come up in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. Doug, so sorry about the interruption.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
perfect. I'm inclined to agree with the criteria, kind of as you discussed it, that the longer section probably prioritizes more highly, but that maybe is separate from the strict prioritization process. If there's some place that just makes sense to do, kind of regardless how it falls in the prioritization, let's just pull it out. I don't know that we need to put together a great big mathematical algorithm and be absolutely tied to what comes out of it. So.
Oh, he's already done that.
It was the absolutely tied part that. Since it's come up a couple of times, the 6,000 and 10,400. My initial understanding was that we were not planning to close the road for that. Did I misunderstand, or
No.
has something changed?
That was our initial assessment as well. As they got out there, they were trying to reshape the roadway. They were rebuilding the crown. They thought that they had enough room to move the traffic over to the side. They had to go out a little bit further. We talked to Ty earlier today. We don't want to see 6,000 closed with 56 closed. As much as people think that engineers love shutting down roads everywhere, that wasn't our intent. So
Especially the first week of school.
especially the first
Yeah,
week
right.
of school. Yeah. So that should be opened. Ty was hoping that we'd have it back open today.
But just kind of an add-on to what Chris said, 5,600, we know that this first week will be rough, but it should be open the end of this week. So second week of school will be good. First 3 days, I'm sorry, it will be painful for everyone.
The first 3 days of school are painful regardless. It's fine. Councilmember Courtney, anything else?
No, I don't have any. This looks like a great bit of work, and I'm pleased to see that we've gotten you a branded shirt now so that when you're out and about, people don't get worried and call the police.
Thank you.
Was that a problem? I can see it. Perfect. Councilmember Campbell.
Yes, on the ranking criteria, I think the one thing that may be missing is safety. We have Country Club Drive that both sides are missing sidewalks. So the only way they're going to get through there, because both sides are missing sidewalks, and both sides are 3 feet of weeds, or people to go into the street. That's our kids, that's our bicyclists. That seems to me it would be a priority over a street that, I don't care how long it is, but if there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street, it's less critical that we put one on the opposite side of that street. And the length itself, I don't know that that's really a criteria measure compared to safety. And I don't know how to measure safety, but I know that when you don't have a sidewalk on either side of a road and that road narrows to 21 feet, that's a high priority. I don't know how we avoid that being at the top of the list, but I'm not saying put it there. I'm saying that I hope we put some criteria in that, and you would understand how to do that probably better than I. But one of those variables would be, is there access, is there an alternate path that residents can walk on to get from point A to point B? And if there's not, that becomes a high priority. That's all I have.
Thank you, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that this list, when we rank it, I believe we've got to factor in those variables that we've been presented today. They seem to make sense.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Would you mind going back to the slide with the circles? And then, yes. So Country Club is not, it is or it is not in here? I'm struggling with that, right? So it is with.
It is.
Okay.
Let's let the engineer answer.
Go ahead.
Yes, it is showing right between where the two circles are intersecting.
Okay.
It's been circled.
So it's outside of the circle, almost, right? So it would be better if we could get that in the circle, but I realize you can't. So, and I appreciate this is great, the presentation that you've given. So if you'll go to the shot on 9600 North, please. I think, and Chris and I have been working on this, there we go, right there. So I think I have 3 on that side that want to sign for the Safe Schools, and 1 on the other side for Safe Schools. And like I've told Chris before, I'm glad to be the gopher. I know we have to have principals sign off on that, and I'm glad to talk with them, or, maybe I'm not allowed, I don't know, but I'm glad to do it, and with the residents. So if I can do that and push it along, if we're doing March, then that's great. I'm grateful for that number that you gave, because people always ask me, how much is it? So now I have a number. And when some residents have struggled with giving their land away, even though it's, 6 feet, Chris? What is it? 4 to 6 feet, maybe?
Yeah, in a lot of areas, it's 20 to 30 feet.
20 to 30 feet. But when you say, we can get you in on this program, and it's more, nothing's free, right? But it's not as big a cost to them. So, and I think we do need to make Country Club a priority. I was out there today, and but all along there, I think, and I know you said that the power lines and whatnot, and that's why I tried to kind of get us along there. And I think Chris and I talked about that with burying the lines. Sometimes we can get UDOT involved too. That maybe is what I remember you saying to me. But maybe that's just too big of a project. And then the trees, the people in there are really great to help each other and move. But like on the retaining wall right there, that is quite a drop. It's about a 5-foot drop. That's up to the homeowner, correct, to move that if they were to put a sidewalk in and bequeath that to the city?
If it was part of the Safe Routes project, what we've done in other areas is it's part of the project.
And they would do it.
Yeah, but they'd probably need to get a slope easement onto their property to slope it down from the sidewalk grade.
So maybe I have 4 people along that side and one on the other side. We'll see, because she did not want to move. Anyway, thank you for your hard work. This really clears up a lot. So that's really all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Rodella.
I just agree with Ron that sometimes just looking at the prioritization list, I think safety needs to be a factor into that, especially sidewalks not being there on both sides of a road or being cut off like this and going straight into weeds. Just need to be relooked at in that prioritization process. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
So I agree with the things that have been said, and I really appreciate your efforts on this. And it's good we're coming up with a way to prioritize things. But I agree with some of the comments that have been made, especially about the group of citizens we've had here. It seems to me like we need to factor in, if the citizens come and say, hey, look, we got a real problem here, I think that should increase the priority on it. And so I think we need to factor that in always. And that's a safety issue. And when the citizens who live there come and say, hey, it's a safety issue, what can you do to help us? I think that needs to go, be a factor in when we fund this. And, you know, obviously what we're going to have to do probably is we can look for the safe schools, we can look for all this other funding, but we may need to every year kind of set up a certain amount of money besides that safe funding and say, we're going to have this much funding in here to work on some projects, even if we can't get the safe schools and the other things. And then I just think we need to do that. So, and I don't have a figure to give you, but we can look at the budget.
Mayor, can I make an additional that I just thought of comment?
Yes.
And it has to do with the length. It's one thing to have, 1,000 feet needed, and that's going to have an economy of scale. But it also eats up a huge amount of money. When we can take small ones, 100 feet here and 50 feet here and 80 feet over here, and take care of those, even though the economy of scale is lost, we've done more good for the community than big, long runs. So it's not an easy solution, and I'm not pointing fingers or doing anything other than saying, let's look at it really carefully. When it comes to budget, we do have a lot of big item budgets, and those take up, and then you've all these little ones down here that never really get there because we have an economy of scale metric that we're trying to adhere to. So I hope we figure out a way to balance that. So we can say, let's do X amount of this money, maybe 70% is for the big projects, and 30% we're going to do the little projects because we have more impact in the community to take care of the little projects.
Hey,
I have an additional question.
Okay.
So ballpark me a figure, since that is still up there on Country Club Drive there. How much would that section be to put, just ballpark it, not going to hold you to it. How much would that be to put that sidewalk in?
I think the residents measured it at 216 feet.
Linear
so
feet.
That would put us at the very low end, which is unlikely. It would be in the, I'm not doing math very well in my head today.
30,000?
Wasn't it, it was about 200, right, was your low end?
Yeah,
Is that right?
150 is the low end, and 475 is the high end.
So yeah, just about 40,000.
Although the cost of the sidewalk is not the entire cost there because we'd be needing to re-engineer the road.
It also does not include potential property acquisition.
Well, and that road doesn't really match anything. I mean, it's a little strip. It's not, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Doug, but that's been like that since Moses wore short pants. So it needs to be done. Thanks. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, again, not saying this is a reason not to do it, but I would anticipate this road being on the higher end just because of all of the complications. So think more in the $80,000 range ultimately. Again, not a reason not to do it, just kind of giving you a ballpark.
That's helpful to know as we prioritize going forward. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for doing this project. Thank you, Ryan. I think it's a thing we get asked about a lot, and I think it's really helpful information. So thank you. Thanks for coming.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So what's the next step? Are we going to come with a list of priorities, or how do we notify the citizens? Are we going to just talk about this every budget year? What's the goal?
So the next step would be to fine tune the prioritization list and kind of get an idea of what it would look like with the additional criteria talked about tonight. And then I think from there, kind of looking at what funding and what projects we can put forward for the Safe Routes to School, since that's coming up in March and it sounds like a long time away, but it's not for funding. So I think that's kind of our next steps, and having a well-built prioritization for the consideration of budget after that.
Okay. Thank you. I bet we'll talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, let's move on to item 7B. Thank you, Ryan.
So we're here to talk about some PI rates again, a little bit, just to kind of reiterate. Our goals with the PI rates aren't necessarily to be a revenue source for the city so much as just meeting the state requirements of metering the water usage that we have throughout the city. We want to try to encourage residents to not use above their allotment. And when we last met in the workshop, the council's direction was to go with option 1, which is a $15 base rate with a square foot cost plus tier usage. So after that last workshop that we had, this is kind of a list of things that we talked about at that meeting, where we're going to go from there. We want to get some information out to the residents of the city so that they know kind of what their usage is, what their allotments are, and what their actual usage is. We want to be able to update the website with rate information. We want to be able to provide usage in billings, and we want to be able to provide a calculator for residents to understand billings. I think Tavis was going to come, but we've moved through this meeting a lot faster than I had anticipated. So he's not here, but we've been looking at meter usage throughout 2026. The thought is that we would be able to kind of review it when we get into the fall of this year after the irrigation season, kind of see where we're at and kind of maybe tweak things and then decide if we want to implement this for 2027 or if we want to wait until 2028 to implement this. One of the things that we did do is we took the top users within the city, anybody that was using more than 125% of their allotment, and we put door notices on their homes so that, hey, you guys are using more than this, you might want to take a look at it. 125% of the total allotment really only accounted for about 8.2 of the city. That means 91% of the city are using probably within their means, what they should be using. Of that 370, 320 of those were between 125 to 200% of the allotment, and only 1.2% of the users were over 200%, using twice what they wanted. So that's a pretty small percentage. We did remove accounts that were either Highland City accounts or institutional or commercial uses because I think they need to be kind of treated differently. I will say that when we did this, it wasn't intended to be calling residents out for being poor stewards of our water supply in the city. It was more just informational to say, hey, this is where you're at. This is something that could come back, to cause issues. You might want to take a look at it and see what's going on. I will say, when we went through the workshop, we did give some specific examples of residents throughout Highland City and kind of where their usage is that were completely anonymous and completely randomly drawn. As a comparison, there is another, completely random individual from Saratoga Springs who last month used about 130%. So Had I lived in Highland, I would have gotten one of these on my door. And you know what? I don't care. It's fine. You know, I realize that every year there's probably 1 month where I'm going over my allotment. So, but I'm not surprised by it because I'm aware of it. So, so we try to identify, I think this was actually a good exercise for us too as city staff, what reasons are there for overage? Obviously, I think most people just don't realize how much water they're using. And so it gave them a good idea of it. And I think we can educate people on what water conservation methods they might be able to use, resources that they could go out and look at, and things that they might be able to do to just switch up things. But we also identified leaks. We did get some residents that we could tell by looking at their usage, they had water running every day, and so there were leaks. We found residents that had maintenance agreements with the city to irrigate city property as part of their lots. When we looked at this, the allotments that we had, it was based on the square footage that we have for each of the residents, which did not include those areas. So that's something that we'll probably have to add to their allotment so that, you know, they don't get dinged for that. We had some residents who have multiple properties. Some of them were agricultural use, and some of them it was kind of hard to identify exactly where all the water was being used. So that's something that probably internally we'll have to take a look at and kind of see where it's at. But I will say that overall, the city has had about a 20% reduction this year. Just as a citywide, it is a dry year. Residents are kind of responding.
But not in July. Pardon me, Madam Mayor.
That 20% is actually based on just how much water as a city we used from our PI superintendent, and that was like as of a week ago. He originally told me 25 and then came back and said it's really probably closer to 20%, but just for even July, some of the usage that we've seen in past years, we're using less. So it's really quite impressive. Wanted to talk a little bit about education. I think it would be great to promote education through a web link to the state resources. There's a lot of resources out there. Don't really want to give people specific ideas necessarily as city staff. We'd like them to kind of do some of the research on their own so that they could come back and find out maybe some options that they have. There's definitely a lot of elements that can affect what watering needs you have. Some areas, especially in the Northwest, have a higher clay content. The water is going to run off faster if you irrigate too much. Other areas are siltier, sandier, and it's going to soak right in. We have other areas that are probably more affected by irrigation or wind from the canyons, especially. Wind will be the evapotranspiration that you get can actually be worse than watering in full sunlight. Highland City has talked about providing incentives such as the WaterWise program that we've talked about earlier, so I think that would be a great thing. And one of the things that we've had, we're probably about 24% of our residents have signed up for the portal, which I think is great. When I've seen what other cities have, I think it's closer to 10 to 15%. We had about 50 people that signed up after these notices went out. That was one of the things we were hoping to accomplish with that. So I would say that it's been a success. Gretchen has been talking pretty much, I think, nonstop for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, to people who have been calling in and asking about what's going on. So people are at least aware. So next steps, the thought is that we should be able to post what the proposed rates are to the city's website so people actually have something that they can look at. We want to provide a usage calculator, and that's one thing that Tawas was going to come and talk about. He's been kind of working on that calculator. He's been working with our website with Katie to be able to find a way to put that on our website, and last I heard, we think we've got that covered, a way to do that, so we'd like to be able to provide that. We would then be able to also include the allotment and usage on the bills when they go out, so people know how much we've given them as an allotment based on their lot size and what their actual usage is to see where they line up for it. And then probably the last question is 2027 for implementation or 2028? I know one question that's come up is, will residents who could have saved be disappointed if we wait until 2028? The people who are already starting to save for it. But we've also talked about equal bill pay. And do we want a full year of people knowing exactly what the rates are so that they can adjust any of their usages, or maybe take advantage of the WaterWise landscaping to set what their future equal bill pay would be? So a couple questions that we have, and I think that's pretty much what I have for the presentation. I'm just curious to see what some of the comments from the council might be.
Perfect.
If it's okay, Mayor, can I ask Chris to talk to one more point real quick?
Sure.
Chris, talk about our goal with rates and how we're trying to set relative to what we currently get revenue-wise.
We're trying to have zero net effect. We're trying to collect with the rates based on what we see as usage to what we're collecting now. It's not supposed to generate any additional revenue for the city. That's not our intent.
Okay, perfect. So these questions, that's what you're needing kind of direction from us on, is the timeline 2027 versus 2028.
Yeah, I think so. And to make sure that the council is okay if we actually post what we anticipate our rates will be on the city's website, and to start, providing a calculator for residents to use and putting this information on their bills.
Perfect. I love the idea of being proactive. Councilmember Campbell, do you have any questions, comments?
I do, and it just has to do with my own thought process as I thought about this, that I had a little realization of something that I had not thought of before. Because I was all for, let's let everybody know what it's going to be in 2027, what it would have been, but they're paying their current rate. That's fine until you have a bunch of people who are now, I'm paying almost $60 between the two fees. And if I come back and it's only going to be 30, I'm going to say, wait a minute, I want to pay 30. Why am I paying 60? And you're telling me that I'm only using 30. So to me, that brings up a little bit of a caution of giving them what it would be, even though it gives them time to adjust, but are we going to get some pushback on that? And that's a question I don't know the answer to, but it's one that when I thought of it, I thought, man, that causes me to pause on that particular thing. The other one is I'd like to see some way of leveling it out, because what we're going to have now, if we just go with the $15 base and then the usage amount for the months that we use, and zero for the metered amount for how many months, it's going to be really inflated during those months of usage, and then almost nothing, $15 a month for everybody. I'd like to see where we level that out, and I don't know how to do that exactly. The one possibility I thought of is maybe we could estimate what it is going to be and charge that rate for the entire year, and then we've collected all the data, and you overuse or underuse, and we adjust next year's rate based on the previous year's usage, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that would meet the state requirements or not. But
Well, I think that would just be the equal bill pay that we've talked about.
the
I think
equal
that's
bill pay.
definitely something that we
So
can do.
anyway, I kind of favor the equal bill pay approach, because we're going to have some pretty high rates. If we're taking 12 months of usage, we're now paying equal increments for 12 months and then loading them into just the months where it's been used.
Would you prefer to see almost like a mandatory equal bill pay, or an opt-in or opt-out option to it?
I think opt-in and opt-out I'm fine with. If somebody feels like I can afford $90 during these months and $15 during that month, I would prefer not to budget that way, but it's up to the residents. So yeah, I would like to see the an opt-in, opt-out, not mandatory.
Councilmember Rice.
You've worked hard on this. But, so you did send out notices or you did not? So if you go back to,
We did door hangers, yeah.
can you go back to that map with the little green dots?
Yeah, oh, that's
So the green dots are people who
received notices.
who received notices.
Yep.
I didn't receive one, and I thought I was,
We can put one on your door if you'd like.
no, it's all right.
Okay.
I didn't,
I think I'm a green dot.
I don't,
I didn't get a notice.
well, I hope I didn't, but
I
in
don't-
July, did you do July's?
It was probably June's usage.
I'll get one. Okay. So I want the people to make sure that they understand that this is a state mandate and that the state has given us, what's the drop dead year?
2030.
Okay. So we would have it in place if we did 2028, we'd still be 2 years early, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I know you guys worked really hard on it because I've tried to, I know with July, I figure that I'll be paying about $100 over, if I figured it right. And July was pretty hot, pretty bad. So I just am concerned. I like the equal bill pay a lot, and I was the one that originally suggested that. But I also, with Rocky Mountain Power and Enbridge, sometimes I get that attitude of, well, I can smooth that, I can smooth that out. But I would appreciate that, and I know that the residents I've talked with would appreciate an equal bill pay, but it's still, we need to conserve, right? I'm expecting a notice. So that's all I have for the time being, but I reserve the right to come back if I have another question. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question based on Councilmember Rice's statement? I'm wondering if it would be good, Chris, could we take, the random people that you're talking about, look at their usage and provide them what their bill would be out of an example for these few months that we've done irrigation? Is that something that would be helpful to you? If you all got here's what your bill would have been, just to kind of give you some education?
And they've kind of done, that's a great suggestion. They've
just
kind
to
of
give-
done that for me, but they didn't see how much water I was using.
Right,
in
to give an
July.
updated one for
Yeah.
including July, basically.
Well, and my yard still looks like garbage. So, and tell me what the red dots are one more time. I beg your pardon.
The red dots are areas where we generated a spreadsheet that showed a usage that was above 125%.
Okay.
The red dots did not receive a notice because most of them are commercial or institutional area businesses that we didn't have a doorknob to really hang one on.
And are you keeping track of, is it like half acres that are going over, acres that are going over? It's just, you're not keeping track of that, which is fine. I'm not saying you should.
We put this on GIS because I was curious to see if there were certain areas of the city that would be more prominently overusing. There doesn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason. I thought maybe older homes would maybe have less impervious surfaces. Some of the newer homes have the swimming pools and the big, patios and stuff like that. So I thought maybe certain areas of the town might be more affected, but it really is pretty just scattered all over. I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. There's kind of a suggestion, because a few years ago I went to just a smart box. I don't necessarily, it's a smart system. And I didn't know if we could maybe think about an incentive for especially older homes. My home is 29 years old and I've been there 28 and a half. 28 and 3/4. But if there was an incentive to help people get that smart box.
And there is an incentive through the state.
Through the state. I'm wondering about the city.
So the state incentive is $100 and most of those cost about $98. So I think it really does cover the cost other than, having to rewire it.
Thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
I bug you a lot. Thank you.
My apologies to Tavis. I did not know he was coming, so I'm sorry that we moved quickly.
No, you snooze, you lose. He lost out.
Okay. He will always be invited back. Councilmember Rodella.
I'm excited about this. I think one of the things that we could always do is talk to other cities to see how they implemented this. As part of my job with the governor's office, I go around checking water meters, making sure that we're using our funds correctly to pay for those. And I get to talk to the cities about how they're implementing this system within their area. I was talking with Cedar Hills. I was just in Newton, Utah a couple days ago, but I did talk to Cedar Hills about this, and they went through their whole rollout of exactly what they did to inform residents of this. I know that they did the dedicated customer portal, they did website notices, PI rate calculator, they held town hall meetings. newsletter, citywide campaign, social media, and then the utility bill notices. And they worked with DNR as well and received help and a slight grant from them to be able to pay for all of this communication efforts. And I do know that one thing that they did tell me is that there was a very low percentage, if essentially no one, that was paying an overage of the tiered rates because of the communication efforts of this. It was very, very low. And so I think cities, one of the great things is that we can reach out and say, hey, who has already implemented this? How have you done it? What's worked well? What hasn't worked well? So that's just one thing that I ask our city to do is maybe reach out to Cedar Hills as well, because they did a great rollout with this.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yes.
So I appreciate all the comments and the suggestions from different people on the council. I guess the burning question in my mind is how many of the 1.2% overusers were rice farmers?
I'm not aware of any of them that were rice farmers.
Okay.
I did see one that was like at 600% of their allotment, and looked at it on the parcel maps to see if they did have a rice farm or something out there. And honestly, I'm still stumped. I was just doing that earlier today as I was preparing this presentation. I'd like to drive by because I don't even, from the aerial, I don't see any reason why they're using so much.
I beg your
It could be a
pardon.
leak. Very, very well could be a leak.
I beg your pardon, but I'm a rice and I am a farmer.
So there's
Does that count?
one. We have one.
Well, there's one right there. Hey, so just another question. So it sounds like we're going to do a pretty heavy education, and hopefully, I think it's impressive that you already have records that we've dropped our irrigation needs by 20%. Now, some of that's drought, but some of that's because the meters are in place and people are trying to complain. And speaking with the overusage, I talked to Chandler Godwin, who's the city manager of Cedar Hills, and they said that when they instituted this and got the race going, they found some bad leaks. They found one resident that was using 1 million gallons a year or something, and they went in and found it was a leak and it had been ignored and different things, and they fixed that and they saved quite a bit. So I think just having the meters is going to be very helpful for that. And then I think as we educate people to fix their sprinkler heads, you know, I don't know how many times I go around and sprinklers are shooting out into the road or into somebody else's because of a broken sprinkler head, and that can save a lot of money if they do that. The other question I had is on the eastern side of the city by the American Fork River, we have a large section of the Cedar Hills Golf Course. It's in Highland City. How is that going to be paid for? Are they already metering that, or how does that work with the golf courses?
They're not using the water from Highland City. I think they're getting their water from PG. So it's not.
So that
metered by us.
doesn't
It's not
affect
it's
our
not-
pressurized irrigation. That's all, in
Correct.
other words.
It does not affect.
And then the Alpine Country Club, is that all wells? Their wells?
Their wells. Yep.
Okay, so the golf courses in the city will be using our pressurized irrigation.
That's correct.
So I think that's important for the citizens to know that, because that's always a question I get asked.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate all the work you've done on this. Obviously, before we set the rates, and I would kind of lean towards 28 to give another year of education. But obviously, we're going to have public hearings, and we want a lot of public input, because this is a big deal for a lot of people. And there were promises made, oftentimes verbally, 20, 25 years ago when we put the pressurized irrigation, that people who donated their shares would have unlimited water. Things have changed. And mainly, you can only give so much water if you have it. And then we've had phenomenal growth. In that 20-year period, the city population's probably quadrupled. So I think education goes a long way, and we're going to do the best to be fair with the residents. But I think we need a lot of public input as much as we can. And so I appreciate all your work on education.
Thank you.
Councilmember Courtney.
Yeah, I really like the focus on the publicity plan and education and what you put together here. A question about the total revenue. That you said the target is revenue neutral between the two. Is that assuming that everybody is using?
That's assuming
100%
that everybody
or-
is using 100%.
Okay, perfect.
So if we do have people using more, you know, obviously the downside is if we based it on 125%, if that's what we have most people using around that, and then we ask people to cut back and they do, all of a sudden our revenues don't meet the needs of the city and we have to look at adjusting rates. So that's.
Yep. No, and that's why I was asking, because I wanted to make sure that we weren't counting that revenue to get to neutral, because then the message is, we want you all to conserve, and when you do, we're going to raise your rates.
Yep. That is also one of our goals too, not.
Could you skip ahead a couple of slides to your one that had the questions for us? I think there was one more. Perfect. Councilmember Courtney, did you have a preference 2027 versus 2028?
I'm generally inclined toward 2028, but it's not a strong. I'm not going to push hard or fight for that.
Councilmember Campbell, did you have a specific 2027 versus 2028?
Yeah, what Doug said, I agree. And if we do, the question is, what are we going to do in 2027? Do we give them that information? And to me, that's a question that I don't have an answer for you right now because of what I stated before.
Councilmember Rice, do you have a preference?
I think that 2028 is okay. I'd like to put this off as long as possible, but it would allow us to make adjustments before 2030 if we needed to. If it was just so, outrageous or whatever, we'd have enough data by that time. So, sometimes when we put things in effect faster, and I know that I have people who say, no, you need to put this off as far as you can, but it also would allow us to make adjustments when we start for everybody, right? So I'm not going to die on that hill, whichever.
Councilmember Rodella, did you have a preference?
I guess I always refer back to what Cedar Hills did, where during the higher months when they first started implementing it, they deliberately paused the tiers 4, 5, and 6 and capped everyone at the tier 3 and then tier 3 and gave residents time to adjust their sprinkler systems during those higher months of July and August, and then started implementing it. So I think I'm fine starting to implement it in 2027, but do it in a way that isn't punitive during those higher summer months so that we can see, okay, this is how we need to do it, and then be able to then have that in place for the next summer in 2028.
Kind of a staggered implementation.
Do you have any other thoughts on that, Councilmember Smith?
No.
I know you said. Do you have the information that you need?
I think so. I appreciate
Just
it.
with regard to the 2027, 2028, I particularly like Kim's approach that we can get it out, but not charge the punitive rates in 2027. And yeah,
Education.
actually, I like that approach.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So let's go back to that idea of opting in on the equal pay. Is that going to require a new program for the computer for our people? I mean, have we figured that in?
I don't think so. I did
Okay.
talk to our accounting and asked if that was possible. I was told that it was. And that's the extent of my knowledge of how it works
Okay.
in the city.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to communication item 7C, and this is me. So I just want to start by saying, I think that everybody sitting on this council and myself worked really, really hard to be where we are. And I think we each represent a different group of people. And I just want to say thank you in advance to the council members for not only in advance, but for the work that they've done. There are a lot of committees that y'all sit on and a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, some of which is not as maybe recognizable or people don't know what's going on, but it's really, really appreciated. And I think the fact that we all worked really hard to be here speaks to the fact that we all feel like there's something valuable that we can add to the conversation and we have something that we want to accomplish. That being said, I think that we are maybe not working together as well as we could be, or as well as I would like us to be. And I think it's not just a matter of we disagree about issues sometimes. I think sometimes there can be disagreement, and then sometimes that can maybe cross the line over to something that's maybe not contributing to the work that we do. And I think that sometimes that can lead us to not govern as effectively as we could. I think that each of us was elected by a group of residents to look out for their interests and to work together as a council to make good decisions, whether we disagree or we don't disagree. And so I feel like that is one of the main things, was to give us each a seat at the table and to have a say in what's happening. And I feel like when we're working together efficiently and all recognizing that, and all sitting at the same table, but with the ability to disagree with one another, vote, and then continue on, we can do a better job. So I guess I just want to set the stage for what I am hopeful will come out of this conversation tonight is only an ability to work together better. I know that there are disagreements. I know that there are frustrations. I'm not asking us to pretend like those don't exist. I'm not asking us to pretend like we're all going to be best friends and always get along. But what I do hope is that we can leave tonight with maybe an understanding of how we can move forward together and maybe set some expectations. And initially, I would just like to recognize I am a new mayor, right? I have not been here very long. I've never done this job before. And my guess is that I've gotten some things wrong and that I haven't handled every situation perfectly. I would be equally inclined to bet that I will also make mistakes going forward. And I am completely willing to own that, to recognize it, and to accept any constructive feedback that anybody has for me. I've had a few things pointed out to me that I could do better, and I want you to know that I am motivated to do that, and I will do my best. So I think what I would like to do is just establish maybe a common standard that we can have about being able to disagree without being disrespectful, question information without questioning honesty, lose a vote without creating enemies, and express our concerns without feeling like we're not able to do that. In Utah Law Code 10-3B-203, it says that one of our responsibilities is to make and enforce any additional rule or regulation for the government of the council, the preservation of order, and the transaction of the council's business that the council considers necessary. So that's something that I take seriously, and something that I think that after doing some research the last few months that other cities do, that maybe we could do a little bit better, which is to establish a set of council norms or a code of conduct or something. I've got a lot of ideas about what I think that should be, and I hope that I can hear some ideas from you all tonight too. Some of the ideas that I had that I've seen other cities include, these are all coming from South Salt Lake, West Jordan, Holiday, Lehigh, Saratoga, Eagle Mountain. I'm happy to give anybody the references to those specific cities. Some things I would like, though, to maybe do a better job of going forward, myself included. Focused engagement during meetings. So paying attention to the meeting, what's going on around us. Disagreeing without attacking each other personally. Always conducting ourselves in a way that promotes public confidence. Treating everybody with respect. And I think everybody who knows me knows that when I came into this job, the dignity and respect statement was a big deal to me. I have no physical ability to enforce that in any way, but it doesn't mean it's not important to me, and it doesn't matter. It's a big deal to me. I would like to have a policy for addressing concerns that we may have and making sure those concerns go through appropriate channels within our body and not through staff. Maybe giving colleagues an opportunity to explain themselves before assuming bad motives. Communicating effectively even when we disagree, and recognizing that once we come out of a meeting with a decision that we all may not agree with that decision, but we have the responsibility to carry forward in implementing the decisions that we've made. So those are just kind of some of the ideas that I have. I haven't formalized everything. I have lots of other ideas as well. This is something I think we can do better generally. It's not any one of us is doing anything wrong. It's just something that I think is important to address and to take seriously. So what I would like to do is I would like to hear just feedback from you all. If you think it would be something you would be interested in continuing to work towards, some kind of a code of conduct or a code of ethics that we could maybe sign yearly, knowing that this is going to be mostly self-regulated, right? But establishing a set of procedures that we can go through if we have disagreements or problems. So what I would kind of like to do is just, as I have been doing, just go around, let everybody kind of express their opinion about that. If you have ideas about whether or not you think that would be useful, if you don't think it would be useful, and if there's anything that you would like to add to that list. So I think what I would like to do, though, is just go around, hear each member's ideas, and then maybe not have a back and forth because I don't think that would be helpful tonight. Maybe just kind of express your ideas, and then we'll see where we land and see if this is something that we're interested in pursuing or not. But I hope that as we do this, we'll be able to be really respectful in our suggestions and what we have to say. And I'm only interested in hearing things that are useful and productive for our discussions and decisions and council meetings going forward. So that being said, that's really what I'm looking forward to. This is mostly a communication item, so not something we need to decide on, just something I'm interested in knowing if anyone else is interested in pursuing as well. So with those comments, we'll start with Councilmember Rice and just see what everybody has to say.
I mean, I don't know how enforceable this is, but you're the mayor, and if you want to go forward with it, that's fine.
Do you have any suggestions or things you would like to add to the list?
I can always email those to you, can't I?
Absolutely, and I'm happy to have a conversation as well.
And that might be a better way. I don't know. But
Okay. Happy to have the conversations. I just always want to make sure that when we're making decisions, we do it in a public way. And I'm sure if we decide to do something, we'll bring it back and have another conversation. Councilmember Rodella, do you have anything that you would like to add or say?
Yeah, I guess if I love this. I love that we have council policy and procedures. We've always had a great city council. I love that for many of us, when we disagree, we do it in a great way. We have a little good laugh about it afterwards. I guess if many of you know, Scott and I pretty much disagree on a lot of things, and we have the best friendship and enjoy each other and our disagreements. And that's how it should be. With this, I think I definitely would love to have council policies and procedures when there's retaliation against somebody in which you do disagree with, but I do want to know, like, how will that be enforced? Will there be, a way to, what happens if there is a council member that doesn't adhere to these council policies and procedures? And then also, will there be details in these procedures and policies, such as disparaging comments to them, to residents, social media posts disparaging council members and staff and residents, or is this just an overall general view?
Yeah, so I think I'll respond to that. So a lot of cities have done it different ways from what I've seen, and that's what I would like to kind of have a council member or council discussion about, because we can include and not include as much detail as we would like. The list that I have is really long, and I don't think we could possibly include everything. But kind of my idea is that we would follow the lead of some of those other cities and use some of those same standards. A lot of other cities have policies for when there are disagreements about where you go to take a disagreement, how we disagree publicly, if there is something specifically that you're concerned about, what the process for following up on something like that could be, like in a meeting or formally. It's really just establishing policies and rules so that we have something we can look back on and say, these are in our council rules and procedures that you agreed to and you signed, and we're not following those. Because right now, we don't have a lot in our city code at all, not nearly as much as most other cities do. And we do have that direction for this from the state legislature that that's something we should focus on. So I guess that would be my idea, exactly what it would look like. I didn't know if it was anything anybody else was interested in pursuing, so I haven't written anything up. And as far as how that would be enforced, I think it would just be looking back at those rules and seeing if somebody had broken them, and then what kind of procedures we establish following up on that. Look, I mean, you can't, I think it is mostly a self-regulating behavior. I don't think that there's, I can't manage, everything that people do, and that's not my intent. My intent is to give us a common set of standards and a process for what are we going to do when we feel like those standards are not being upheld, outlined in code so that we are all coming from the same place.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that is needed recently on the city council, and I would love to have, procedures and what happens when those policies are broken. So, and also, I mean, I love to have, details exactly what the criteria is, and I think more detailed view of exactly what are those council policies. I would lean more that way instead of just a general overview. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and some of the cities have it spelled out like in a very, very specific way. Yeah, some of them get very specific, and we could get as specific or general as we would like to, and that's where I would be interested in feedback, and if anybody has specific things that they would like included.
Like what are some, like how specific do they get? What are some examples of that?
Okay, let's see. Sorry, I have so many pages of notes here. I've been thinking about this way too much.
Do they like talk about social media etiquette? Do they talk about email etiquette? I mean, I guess I just want to know what are the specifics of this.
Yeah. Okay, so this I'm just reading verbatim from one of the cities. Okay. Plan to attend and prepare in advance of council meetings in order to be familiar with issues on the agenda. As outlined in the rules, fines may be imposed in the event of excessive absences. Be attentive and act efficiently during public meetings. The actions of each council member shall not cause disruption or detract from the focus of the meeting. Serve as a model of civility to the community. Instill public confidence through an engaged approach. And then some of them get more even specific than that about in public meetings, use formal titles, honor the role of the council chair in maintaining order and dignity. Some of these I don't think we have a problem with. Treat all city employees as professionals, limit communications with staff to business hours, and schedule meetings in advance unless absolutely necessary. What else is there in here? Do not use city resources to prepare or publish controversial positions. Do not attack or criticize other council members or the mayor personally. Be welcoming to speakers and treat them with respect. Be an active listener. Strive to be succinct and keep comments and debate relative to the topic. Refrain from criticizing an individual person. Some of them go through steps that you could go through if these were violated. And there are several different ways that you can do that. Some of them go so far as to making suggestions as to what you should put on social media or the proper channel. To me, a big one would be the proper channels when disagreeing with a staff report or a staff presentation, what we would want that to look like. So they could be as specific or general, I think, as we would like them to be. Lehigh City has a couple of interesting things in theirs that are make every vote thinking for the good of the overall public. And there are some that talk about once a decision is made, you can still disagree, but go forward doing everything you can to enact the will of the council. So those are kind of some of the suggestions that they had in other cities, but there are so many, and I'm happy to share some of the research I've done with anybody who is interested. Anything else, Kim?
No, I really like this. I enjoy my friendships on council, and I just want to make sure council members are protected, that they're treated correctly with respect, civility, inside council chambers, outside amongst our residents. Our council puts a lot of hard work and effort into everything that they do. And so I would love to be able to make sure that they're treated that way.
Okay, Councilmember Smith.
First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the mayor for all the work she's put into this. She does tremendous research, has looked at many, many cities. So you spend a lot of time on this, plus you're working full time, taking care of family, your parents and everything. I just appreciate all the time and effort you spend on this. First of all, I'd like to tell the staff that I've been on the council for a few years, off and on, and this is the best staff I've worked with. I can say that honestly. And so I think we need to really, as a council, to appreciate all the work you do, because we oftentimes sit on the dais here and we work together to legislate ordinances and kind of solve problems, but it's the staff that does all the implementation usually. But I really appreciate the work that everyone on the council does to go out and visit homes and the particular areas they're assigned to. I have the option of serving on a couple boards, the Animal Board and the North Point Waste Transfer, which is the garbage board. And we spend time kind of working with the special service districts. So I really appreciate all the work that everyone does here, and I really appreciate the enthusiasm of all the council members. So I've got a few questions before I make some comments. First of all, I want to clarify this, Rob, with you. So my understanding with the Open Meetings Act is during a council session, we as council people shouldn't be texting one another. Is that true? Because everything that we do on the council in the meeting itself should be part of the public discussion. Is this true or not? Or what's your opinion on that?
Yes, that is my opinion, that the Open Public Meetings Act, it's the stated goal and purpose of it is for the public body to conduct its business openly, which you can't do if the public can't see the conversations you're having. So there are exceptions for electronic communications, emails, texts, and those are perfectly appropriate outside of a council meeting. That's how we do a lot of things, keep each other informed. But during the council meeting, especially in particular if it's relating to a topic being discussed, if you get a text from your child, that's fine. That's not the public's business. But if it's something related to the public's business, to the topic of discussion, or something that might be part of the topic of discussion. Those should not be done during the meeting, should be part of the discussion publicly.
So I sometimes get texts. In fact, at the first of this meeting, I had a patient contact me. Sometimes I have the hospital call me because I'm always on call for my patients. So sometimes people see me working on my phone. But I think we always need to make sure that the communication between council members is always done in a public manner to meet the Open Meetings Act. So I'd like to make 2 or 3 other comments. One, we're members of a constitutional republic, and people are elected to be on councils and different things, and we're at a city level and different things. But we expect there to be different opinions, and we expect there to be some discussion and sometimes emotion and other things. But I can honestly say over the years with all the council members I've worked with, and there's many times I've been the outlier where the votes have been 4-1 and I've been number 1 and different things. But at the same time, I can honestly say, even with people on the council that I had some big disagreements, that I consider them to be friends. So there was a former mayor, I'm not going to say who it is, but we sparred quite a bit. And the staff knows who that was. But I worked really hard, and we both worked hard on that relationship. And in the last election, he came to me and says, I hope you run again, and he put my sign in his yard. And during the fling, I had a long discussion with him, and we talked about his service to the city. And so that's kind of the way I kind of look at things. So that said, I have a temper. And I've spent my whole life trying to temper that temper. I don't know if that's the proper term. And kind of work on it. So for the Star Trek fans out there, I'm trying to become less human and more Vulcan. And I already have the big ears, so I just need the point on the end, and I think I'll be there. I don't know if it'll happen. But sometimes I'm reactive with my temper, and I should really stop and think things through. So we had an episode in May when we were doing the temporary budget where a newer member on the council who didn't, I don't think, understand that it's not, that we shouldn't be sending texts, sent me a text and sent Kim a text and felt like we were making fun of that person. So I think we have to be careful with the assumptions because I really wasn't doing that. I just kind of looked at Kim. So I think when we're on the council, we have to feel comfortable being able to look at our partners, to be able to discuss things, to be able to smile and things without someone else on the council feeling offended. So, but at this time, I am going to publicly apologize to Councilwoman Liz Rice for offending her. And she's asked me to publicly do that, and I'm going to do that right now. Because I called her out, and I was reactive. I should have not done that. And I sincerely apologize, Liz. And I hope you'll accept that. Okay? And so at the same time, I'm hopeful that we can work together more as a council. We can have different opinions and different things. And what I'm hopeful for is I'll promise you in the many years I've been on the council, after the council's out, I may murmur and different things. I got upset and left one council a little bit early and things. But at the same time, I have never gone out in social media and said mean things about other council members. Now, I did joke one time about Councilwoman Rodella to Sarah Peterson, that when we were talking about the alcohol laws and that, I suggested that maybe Kim might want to throw out beer cans during the parade.
I almost did.
But I was trying to be funny, and sometimes my wife always says, you think you're funnier than you really are. So anyhow, I just want to apologize for what happened that night. I was reactive instead of being proactive. I'm always working on it, but until my ears get pointed, I'm very human. But I'm also very willing to apologize when I'm in error. And so I'm hopeful that we can all do that and be friends on this council, even when we disagree. It's okay to have disagreements. And that's why we have a council. And then we're supposed to come together to a consensus. Are we always, so sometimes, like tonight, we've been 5-5 on some votes, but sometimes we're 3-2. And that's okay, but the majority rules. And so I think we have to remember, occasionally it's 2-2 when there's not all 5 of us here, and the mayor has to make the decision. But I think once that decision's made, we just need to say, I did my best to make my compelling argument, but, you know, the council felt differently. Now, every 2 years we have elections, councils come and go. I'll be gone someday. I've enjoyed being on the council. I love being here. I enjoy living in Highland. I've been here 37 and a half years. We have great people. We have a great city. We're ranked as one of the safest in the state. We're one of the most prosperous. We have some of the lowest taxes. We're going to be out of debt in the next 18 months. I mean, I don't know what more we can ask for. So, and that's because we've worked together as council. So that's my comments. I appreciate the mayor's work on this. I'd like to see some policies and procedures, and I am committed to follow those and to always trying to be hard to be civil, but I ask people's forgiveness if my temper gets bad, because dang it, I'm human and it pops out sometimes, and I'm so sorry, but I'm always willing to say I am sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. You are a gentleman and a statesman and somebody I look up to greatly. Councilmember Courtney.
For starters, just in case there's anybody who's thinking about being in the parade in the future, we do not allow throwing out cans or bottles of any sort. So that's entirely off. My understanding is that Mayor Bills kind of spoke with everybody ahead of time to give them some sort of an idea of what this item was about. She met with Councilmember Rice and I this morning, and I just put something together, and so I am going to read it so you don't have to listen to my normal hemming and hawing.
Will you sing it?
A story for that afterwards, but the primary thing that I want to see, and I think that we owe the citizens of Highland, is a strong, well-functioning council. A council that works together to craft the best solutions to issues facing Highland. A city council that doesn't let personal frictions get in the way of doing so, and a city council that can discuss difficult issues. We need not be buddies who hang out together on weekends. In fact, the state's open meeting law probably would prefer that we didn't do that. But we do need to be engaged, professional, interacting colleagues. For this reason, I appreciate the mayor placing this item on tonight's agenda, and I think this is worth pursuing to determine by consensus details for inclusion. Ask any of my family or friends, and they will assure you that I am far from perfect. I make mistakes, I misspeak, I misunderstand, and I can be, say, less than tactful when I'm frustrated or angry. I'll go out on a limb and suggest that my fellow elected officials may have similar imperfections. We will make mistakes. We will annoy each other and Highlands residents. We will speak intemperately. Not out of malicious intent, simply because we are flawed humans. This agenda item is about policies and procedures, so I propose the following as practices we all might find agreeable. 1, master our stories. Rather than tell ourselves negative stories about why someone behaved as they did, we should strive to have stories that view the other as a reasonable, well-meaning actor. 2, have important conversations. When frustrated with someone else, discuss it with that person. Likewise, when faced with major policy disagreements. 3, strive for understanding. When engaged in conversation about interpersonal issues or about policies, work to understand the other's viewpoint and reasoning. And 4, we win or we lose as a group. If we adopt a policy that ends up being bad for Highland, that's a loss for all of us. If we adopt a policy that ends up being good for Highland, even if none of us got exactly what we wanted in it, that's a win. Doesn't mean decisions need to be unanimous. But even in disagreement, we should work toward passing the best policy possible. I personally like, respect, and enjoy working with every member of this council. Whether we have a unanimous vote or I'm alone at 4-1, that has never changed. If anyone sees something I can do to improve, I hope they'll discuss it with me. All I want is for each of us and all of us to be the very best we can be for Highland. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. So there's no song, really?
There was a possibility, but it just wasn't coming together.
Gotcha. No pressure.
Maybe give a little more background on that.
So Councilmember Courtney has a tradition of creating a song for us for every budget retreat, and it always lightens the mood. And
But that doesn't mean he can sing.
well,
I characterize myself as the singing councilman, and the quotation marks is a really important part of that.
yes, maybe as a future agenda item, if everybody consents, we can have Councilmember Courtney sing us a song. Again, a true gentleman and true statesman, and somebody I admire very much.
So moved.
So moved. Stephanie, there will be a song next time.
But it's not on the agenda.
Yes. Councilmember Campbell.
One thing about being last on this topic is just about everything that I would have said has been said. Very, very well, especially from Dr. Smith. I appreciate your candor. I respect you immensely, and I really mean that. So thank you for your example, and it sets an example for me to be a better person because of you being on this council, and I genuinely mean that. Early in my life, I attended BYU, and a talk was given by Rolf Kerr, who's kind of known for this thing he calls a personal creed. And he talked about what it was, and essentially it's what we're doing here with these. It's how am I going to behave? I created my own, some of which was exactly the same terminology of what he shared his personal creed was with. But having a personal creed throughout my entire career, which is now over 60 years since I went to BYU. I've lived by that creed, and I think I'm a better person because of that creed. And I think if we set these policies and procedures correctly, it will be our personal creed that we can live by. And I think by so doing, we will be better, effective council members by following exactly what Doug has talked about here and the other things that have been mentioned before. I fully support creating this document and allowing it to become our personal creed.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. And I hope that if anybody has specific suggestions, they will email them to me, including members of the public. If you have something you would like to see us doing better, please let us know. I'll say something again that I said towards the first of the meeting when I was talking about Mr. Wallace. One of my very favorite things about serving as the mayor and being on the city council before that are the friendships that I have been able to establish with a group of people who I wouldn't necessarily have crossed paths with in any other way. Mr. Hart in the background, I mean, I call him at all times of the night with problems or questions. I don't know how we would have become friends otherwise, right? And I appreciate that. And I feel like there is something that I learn from each one of you. Kim, I have always said that in my next life, I want to be somebody who is more like you. I'm scared to be that person in this life, but like next time, but who is able to express herself with the candor that you do, and all the respect for that. Dr. Smith, I already said how I feel about you as somebody who I've looked up to. Councilmember Courtney, you have showed up on my doorstep as a friend, given me good advice, and I appreciate that as well. Ron, you bring such a variety of perspective, and it is so appreciated, and I like that you help me think about things in a different way. Councilmember Rice, you and I do not always agree, and I think that that is totally fine. And I hope you know that I appreciate having you here. I'm grateful that you're here. I think that we can always use a new voice and another perspective, and I am happy to have you swimming in our pond.
We actually agree more than we disagree.
We absolutely do.
There's very few.
We absolutely
I've
do.
only disagreed 3 times in 7.5 months.
Yeah.
So we need to keep that in mind as well.
I 100% agree. Okay, that's really all I wanted to say about that one. I think the residents here don't expect us to agree. I think they expect us to govern. We're going to have more hard votes. We're going to disagree. And I think we just have to keep it as that, a disagreement that happens in the meeting in a respectful way. And we're willing to admit when we're wrong and walk out of the meeting still being friends, still wanting to work together. A weird thing about this job is, like, when I argue with my husband, we wake up the next morning and we have to do business and we have to take care of the kids and whatever. When you wake up the next morning after a council discussion, you don't really see those people always until 2 weeks later when you're going to disagree again. And I think it makes for kind of a weird dynamic. And sometimes things don't get resolved. Anyway, that's all I had about that item. That is enough on that. Moving on to item 7D. So this is just something I wanted to follow up with. I think that most people know that last week we voted on that property tax increase for the library. And so I just kind of wanted to follow up on next steps about that and just give a little bit more information. So that resolution was passed last week. We went through the truth in taxation process respectfully, and as Councilwoman Rodella pointed out at the time, I'm glad we had that process and we're able to do it in the right way, and I appreciate staff's work on that because it is a pain and supposed to be that way, designed to be a problem and a long process. So thank you for that. There were no referendums filed against that vote, so that means that will go into effect moving forward. I also just wanted to correct some information that I did hear over the last couple of months with regards to that property tax increase, because I think that when we're doing something as important as taking money out of residents' pockets, they deserve to have all the information provided factually and explained. So I just wanted to go over a couple of details and make sure we're all on the same page going forward. So staff did an excellent presentation. Their presentation that they gave during our resident open houses and during the Truth in Taxation meeting, I think were excellent presentations, and they were the presentations that council had asked them to give. And I think the information presented as far as what the tax increase would look like were completely correct. And I wanted to let residents know if that you're concerned about what that increase will mean for you, you can look at your property tax statement and it's very clearly lined out. So you don't have to rely on anything the city is saying. It's there for you to look at. There was something else I heard that said that library staff has never gotten a merit increase. And I just wanted to make it correct the record that that is not true. They have gotten merit increases before. There were also comments brought forward at that meeting about a public safety fee increase. I think somebody even had said a number of 35% or something, that there are no plans to do that in the near future. We haven't had conversations about that. And in fact, your Council and Public Safety Board have worked very hard to make sure that Highland is paying the appropriate amount of public safety costs. And the amount that we need to subsidize that is actually going down because of some hard decisions that the council has made recently. I also wanted to point out that PI rates have not been decided, as we just talked about. Those haven't been established. So that is all speculation and nothing that the council has figured out yet. And that is a policy that will be decided by the council. That is not something that is decided by staff. So we will take responsibility for owning that one. I talked to members of the school board and were assured that they do not have any current plans or release numbers about what a potential tax increase would look like there. In fact, they are trying very hard to not increase taxes and have some board members who are strongly opposed to that. I also wanted to, these are just addressing some of the things I heard at last week's meeting, let people know that before we initiated this truth and taxation hearing, the council explored every possible option of different ways that we could fund this. We looked at partnerships, we looked at grants, we looked at subsidizing from the general fund. So we looked at every single way. So I just don't want residents to think this is something we took lightly or that we didn't explore other options. And this is also a decision that was made by the council. It wasn't made by staff. They are very good at doing their job, which is to carry out the direction of the council. And that's where they got their direction, was from us. It is something we do care about. We don't think that because it's a small amount of money to some people, or to anyone really, it's not. We recognize it's a long-term impact to you and your checkbook, and we appreciate that. And recognize that it's not just, we say it's $30 or $25. It's not, right? It's that amount over time, and we recognize that. The other thing that I wanted to point out, kind of in response to some of the comments last week, is that there were compromises that have been made all along the way. When we initially started talking about this, we had talked about doing an even larger increase. And what we ultimately ended up asking for was lower, because of the conversations that we had as amongst council and with the residents. So I just think it's really important to make sure everybody has the facts. And one of the things that I know is on my list of things I can do better is to correct the information as it comes out. I think that's one of our responsibilities. So I will do a better job of that. That's really what I wanted to say about that for my property tax follow-up. Councilmember Rodella, did you have any other questions or things you wanted to say about the property tax increase before we kind of wrap this up and move on?
I guess I want to know, how did untruthful information get disseminated? Was this a public comment? Was this a city council member? And then what do we need to do in order to make sure that honesty and transparency and correct data is being disseminated, even if it doesn't go with our opinion of what we want done?
So I think that there has been disinformation circulated in a variety of ways. I've seen it on social media. I don't spend a lot of time engaging on social media or responding to things, but I have been told that there were some things there. There were some emails to the city and then responses that said that that I think contained some incorrect information. And I want to make this clear too. When I say there was incorrect information, I think we need to go back to our last conversation and say that this is still an assumption that we understand information differently or we're looking at it differently. And I think that if we correct the information when we see it, that is a better way to do it. So I think there was some incorrect information in a lot of ways. I don't think all of the incorrect information, I don't think the incorrect information was designed to be incorrect. I think that some of it is just a misunderstanding of how we interpret data and our misunderstanding of the facts. I think we need to be much more diligent about checking the facts and running them by staff and knowing that staff is ultimately the expert in these facts. Are there other specific questions?
I just think that as council, we need to, make sure to adhere to correct data that the staff gives us and make sure that we are letting residents know. If we are unsure of that data, then we're not going to come up with different numbers that will be able to, sustain what our opinions are, but instead we really do need to think before we send data, before we give out numbers that go contrary to what staff has given us and what have been verified by the other city council members as well. And if that is done, then an apology and maybe a statement needs to be put out saying, yes, that was incorrect data, and follow up with those residents to make sure they know that.
So, and that was one of the standards that I looked at in the item we were talking beforehand, is what do we do if we see incorrect information, and who do we treat as our expert? Dr. Smith?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the things you brought up and the things we're going to hear. As I've gone through life, I think it's human nature oftentimes when we have a particular point of view to emphasize certain things over others. That's normal. That's part of the argumentative process. I just think we always need to be careful as much as we can as members of City Council that we try to make sure our facts are right. And just because the citizens expect us to know. And so I agree with that totally. But, you know, I've also found as I've gone through life is that the truth lies somewhere in between and with opinion. So not so much with facts. I think there was a senator in years past said, you know, people are really entitled to have their own opinion. And that's part of the deal with representative government, but we don't need, or we aren't entitled to our own set of facts. So I think we just have to be very careful that the things that we write out to people, even if we're doing it at a time when we're really, you know, trying to emphasize our point of view, that we just make sure that what we do say is totally correct. And so, and I'm guilty of the same thing. I sat up here during the meeting and was figuring out some percentages, but I didn't really understand some of the things I should have asked questions about. So I probably said some things that weren't 100% true either. So I just think we just all need to be a little more cautious, and it's just part of the process. But I do think the citizens, when we say something, they expect us to be knowledgeable and trying to give things as truthful as we can always. So, and I don't think there's been a lot of intention on the council not to do that. So, but I think it's good just to kind of have a frank discussion occasionally about this.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it's really important too, just because I heard some comments after the last meeting that staff was producing a certain narrative or not providing correct information. And I just want to say that I think that is absolutely incorrect. I think that staff does their best to provide us the information that we ask for and is very willing. Don't mean to call you on it, Councilmember Courtney, but Councilmember Courtney is very willing to question staff when he needs to and ask the difficult questions. And I appreciate that. So I think those are important conversations to have. I think the staff is working for the residents of the city. They're not working for each other or their different departments. And I appreciate that. And I think it's important to recognize the information that they put out there as accurate. And if we think it isn't, then let's talk to them privately. Councilmember Courtney.
My father has long been fond of saying over and over and over and repeatedly that there are three different levels of untruths, that there are lies, there are damned lies, and there are statistics. And I think that that's a good caution.
That would make a great song.
For next council.
I think that's a good caution for us, that whenever we're talking about statistics, context is really key to understanding the statistics that we're looking at. And oftentimes what can look like misleading or untrue things is just a difference of what the context is that you're looking at. And so it comes back to one of the things I mentioned earlier, which was always seeking understanding. I think that when we come across something that, okay, that number doesn't sound right or doesn't sound plausible, that if we try hard, and I'm not perfect about this, nobody's perfect about anything, but that if we try to ask and understand the context behind the numbers that we're hearing, most of the time we're likely to find that both of our numbers are accurate, and we're just not understanding the context in both cases. Not always. People make mistakes. People intentionally mislead. And I'm not speaking about anybody. I'm not speaking about us. This is just people in general. But most of the time, I find that with statistics, it really ends up being just having a different understanding of what the context is that we're looking at them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
Yes, this is something that I think each of us, as we leave here tonight, have an opportunity to kind of reflect. Have I been part of that misinformation? And that's the first thing, is that we self-reflect and make sure that we're listening to what we're saying here in terms of some obvious misinformation, some falsehoods that have been mentioned. The second part of that is, I think we have an obligation to each other at the time when it's happening to maybe ask questions. Wait a minute, that's not my... And I would like to give everybody here permission that when I'm speaking and I'm finished and I've given anything that you believe isn't 100% accurate, please stop right then and ask the mayor for some time and ask me questions to clarify my position so that I don't ever, ever want to mislead the public. I don't have an agenda here. I don't have a future. I'm old enough. I'm going to be 80 years old next February. And I don't, when I'm done here, I'm done. I don't have any agenda to go anyplace else, no political career. My agenda is literally to operate within our constitutional republic to defend and uphold the Constitution of Utah and the Constitution of the United States and do what I genuinely believe is best for the residents of Highland. That's it. I have no other agenda other than that. I want to do what I genuinely believe is best. And if in my enthusiasm, I communicate something that's exaggerated or something that's not exactly accurate, I want it mentioned right then. You don't have to say, that's not true, or maybe you can say, I say it a little differently, can we talk about that? And let me tell you what I understand. Make it cordial and go back to the mayor's original, really good statements of civility and respect for one another. What I don't want is to be blasted on social media, which I have been, and I don't want that in the future. I hope that we can rethink that. And I know for myself personally, I will behave in a way that I can hold my head up high, and if I'm ever contrary to that, I need to know it. I am not perfect, I guarantee it. And you talk about a temper. I have buffered mine over the years, but it took quite seriously some counseling. But my temper's gone. It left about 15 years ago. Thankfully, I got old enough that I could control it 100% of the time. But having said that, I am going to be doing a lot of self-reflection tonight, and I hope that we all do that.
And thank you for pointing out two more things we all have in common, that we are not perfect and that we all want the best for Highland. So thank you for that. Councilmember Rice.
So clearly, I am the one that is the no vote on the tax increase, if you haven't figured that out by now. If you weren't here last Tuesday night, I feel like I almost live here, if not, on the road talking to residents, which I'm not complaining about. It's great. So, and maybe I should have included this when I spoke about taxes. And I just should have done it because in a conversation I had earlier today, they wanted to know where I got some of my information. So if you will indulge me for about 2 minutes. When the Canyon School District split from the Jordan District in 2009, it did not enact a massive unified tax spike right at launch, which Aspen Peaks is not going to do, but the split itself cost taxpayer an estimated $33 million in administrative separation and arbitration expenses. Furthermore, the newly formed Canyons District proposed its first explicit property tax increase of $4.15 million during its initial 2009-10 operating year to manage its independent budget. The shared debt of the obligations, Canyons assumed responsibility for 58% of an older $281 million general obligation bond incurred by the joint Jordan District in 2003. Separation costs, asset and debt arbitration, which they're going through right now, between Jordan and Canyons carried a $33 million transition price tag absorbed by taxpayers. And then the follow-up bonds have been about $250 million tax rate neutral bond, tax rate neutral bond, I'll get it right yet, to fund building modernizations. So my concern with any tax increase, no matter how small, no matter how big, like my dad said, Doug, all the time, and it was credit card debt, it was anything. We dig our debt one shovelful at a time. It doesn't take a lot, and then all of a sudden we're going, boom, oh, where did that all come from? So I do have that. It was not misinformation. I still am concerned about that. And there are individuals who said it will probably be, by the time they're done, which will be not done, but the first year's 27, 28, right?
Yeah, correct.
For Aspen, right? So, and I was a teacher when this first started. I have since retired, but I remember sitting in many meetings and having them discuss how high those taxes would be for a school district. And they kept trying to bring that down and trying, to calm, the meetings, particularly with teachers. So it's not, it's all, and a couple of people have said, well, it's, your perspective, but you just can't keep taxing the people and having, no long-range effect, no matter how small it is. Am I glad the library tax passed? I was the only no vote. I knew I was losing when I came in on that one. I've known that since January. But I still remain true to the things that I promised my constituency. And my constituency is, I guess, different than what is being, what maybe the other mayor or council members have. But, and they were from all over Highland. So I'm not sure on that, but I'm not in the practice of, disseminating, but I should have maybe gone deeper than what I did last week, or even in an email that I sent to a respondent. One of the friends of the library has made it clear that several times that Libby is free, and it really grates on me because Libby is not free. And I know lots of people that love Libby. Whatever, I don't use it. I don't use Libby. I am an Audible fan. I have been since before Amazon bought Audible. So if that tells you how many books, I think I have probably 400 to 500 books in my Audible account. So, but I am not in the practice of that, but I also look at the bigger picture. And that's what I'm trying to do here. We cannot continue at the rate we are increasing between pay at 4.9%, 4%, and only have a increase of 2.3% on, I lost the word, on the inflation rate. So, those were my concerns. They still are my concerns. That is my job. I do not want, what the previous session was and what this session is, that we can't express, not just our opinions, but our background information. That's what makes each council, wherever you are, or legislature, you bring to the table certain perspectives and certain things. I know how fast houses can be lost. I was homeless for a week in 1988, and I'm going to tell you it was not great. It was awful. And those are the perspectives I bring. I've worked 4 jobs in my life. I have worked very hard, and I don't want to see any more money go to any state, city, or national government than what we absolutely have to have. Okay? So I hope that maybe clarifies some of you who, keep saying that, incorrect information is disseminated, because it was not. So, and that's really all I think I have. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Nope, thank you, appreciate it. And I think you were all elected by different constituencies, but now you all represent the same constituency, which is me also. So thank you all for representing me. Just a point that the 3 new school districts did complete their division of assets and debts in June. So that has been taken care of. So that is probably good for them to have behind them. Okay, let's move on and talk about something more fun than any of this.
ADUs.
The DADUs.
Can we have just a minute break? I
Yeah,
know
and
people
then
have been sitting here and it's
we can have a
long.
minute break, but then let me say, when we come back to talk about that, the agenda specifically calls out that we're talking on regulations for the ADU size, and that's the only thing we're talking about. So not anything that we have done in the past or that we will do in the future. It's specifically on the agenda tonight for the size. Okay, we've got 3 minutes. And can we turn down the heat? It's so hot.
I think the problem is in the election stated I was always going to wear my suit coat to honor this position, and I think you're trying to get the heat up so that I don't do that.
Staff will look at that.
Go ahead and jump into then. You didn't have anything for community development updates, so let's jump into the DADUs, talking about size only.
Okay. I was just going to give here's all the things we've already talked about, including state law and our ordinance. The last big thing on the list to talk about is solving the size question. So let's get into that. The Planning Commission recommended 3 overlapping size regulations. So you have to satisfy each of these regulations to build a detached ADU. The first one is just continuing to apply the already generally applicable lot coverage limit for accessory buildings. So in case you've never built an accessory building in Highland, you have to stay under a percentage of the lot for the footprint of the accessory building. We count all accessory buildings towards that limit. So for R140, which also includes most open space subdivisions, it is 5% of the lot. In R120 and 30, it's 7%. So if you're looking in R140 for an acre, you've got 43,560 square feet for an acre. And so you have about a 2,100, 2,200 square foot coverage limit. If it's a half acre, you're a little over 1,000. For R120 or 30, if you're at that same half acre, because it's a 7%, you're about 1,500. So that applies everywhere in Highland. We already apply that. We have people trying to figure out how to fit their pool houses and their detached garages and their shops all within those lot coverage limitations. So Planning Commission says that still applies with the ADUs because those are within accessory buildings. The new regulations, they propose 2 additional size limitations. One is the accessory building with the detached ADU cannot exceed the footprint of the existing home. So even if your lot coverage limit is 2,100, if your existing home has a footprint of 1,500, you're limited to that 1,500 square foot for the building with the detached ADU. So that's an additional. So if you have a smaller home, the detached ADU must also be smaller with it. Then finally, after you meet those other 2, you are limited to the amount of living area within the accessory building that is attached to or part of the detached ADU. So the general limit they proposed was 1,250 square feet if you're under an acre, or 1,500 if you're an acre or more. Again, those are limited by the lot coverage and the home footprint size. So by example, here's a half acre lot in R140. So you've got about a 2,500 square foot home footprint, so that really won't affect things. But because this lot's half acre, 20,000 square feet, they're allowed a 5% lot coverage for accessory buildings, allowing about 1,000 square feet for a footprint of a building. Now, under that size regulation, they're allowed to have a detached ADU that is 1,250 square feet, which means you cannot put that all in one level because the accessory building lot coverage limit shrinks that down. You're only allowed to have 1,000 square feet for buildings. And if you have two separate buildings and one's a pool house and one's a garage, and you want to make a detached ADU in the garage, you're limited even further. So on this type of lot, if they wanted to build the full 1,250 square foot detached ADU, they'd have to do it over 2 levels and make it a 2-level building, subject to the height restriction we talked about last time, which is 25 feet. So just because there is a 1,250 square foot or 1,500 square foot limit doesn't mean you'll actually have a building that big, though you might, depending on the size of the lot. So kind of with that background, the question then is, do we want to keep all 3 of those restrictions on size, and then do we want to tweak any of the numbers? So first, these are the kind of the questions for the council to answer to give direction so we can finalize this ordinance, bring it back. So again, keeping the accessory building lot coverage limit, I don't foresee any huge changes there. Nobody, I don't think, wants to, but any feedback on that question?
Is that the end of your presentation?
Oh,
or do you
sorry,
have
yes.
more?
That's the end of my presentation, just answering these 3 questions.
Perfect. So let's start with Dr. Smith.
I've thought about this a lot and kind of go back and forth because I appreciate all the work the Planning Commission did on it and the feedback that we've done so far. Certainly appreciate the staff's effort. And again, this is really simplified and clean. So I think that's really good. I definitely believe that you can't have a detached accessory dwelling unit bigger than the home footprint. Now, that's a problem because there's a couple, well, there's at least one accessory building in my area. There's some really nice people in that. I'm not going to, but it's bigger than their home, and probably not only square foot, but volume size. And so, as we saw today from the presentation from the gentleman who wants to build his home, and then, you know, immediately he's talking about an ADU in his garage, that I think we just have to be careful. And so I like the size limits. However, you know, I kind of struggle with the 1,500 square foot one. Yeah, it's on the bigger lots and different things, but I just keep going back in that I restored my grandparents' home, and it's like 2,300 square foot, so it's 800 more than 1,500. But in that 2,300, we have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large kitchen, a large living room, and a large dining room, and mechanical room, and a small entertainment center. That's a big home, and of course, we're not talking about 2,300 square foot, but 1,500 is still a big home. And what I have been trying to get away from is I want to support these. I want to have these so that, you know, extended family members can live there. But I think there'll be a real push to rent these out as a source of income to other people. And I think we have to be careful with the size we're allowing, because if they're too big, it's kind of like subdividing Highland. And I've said this before. You know, as we do survey after survey, people like our larger lots. Yes, they want to have some senior living, they want to have these ADUs, but I think we have to be really careful that we don't end up subdividing in all of our zones. And so I would kind of lean towards keeping the 1,250 square foot, which is fairly consistent with what other cities are doing. And I definitely think the DADU should not be bigger than the original home outprint, hopefully much smaller. And I like, of course, we decided on the 25-foot height. So you've talked about some options. I thought your presentations in the packet were very helpful. So I probably would keep the accessory building lot coverage limit. So my goal is to provide options for this, but not ending up to make them so large that we're subdividing the city, because I think that brings its own problems.
Perfect, thank you. So you more are in the camp of 1250 or what?
I'm in the camp of 1250 maximum size.
Okay.
And that's with your acre lots or more. And of course, you know, half acre, you could probably make an argument for that. But you just said with lot coverage thing, they'd have to do a 2-story to do that. But, you know, we saw an example tonight. He came in and says, oh, I'm going to build this accessory garage, but I'm going to put an ADU in it. And I want you to change, you know, the setbacks and stuff so I can do that. So people, I think, have a lot of interest in this and they'll run with it. So I think we just have to be real thoughtful what we're trying to accomplish. That's my opinion.
Okay. Councilmember Courtney.
Yes, I think we keep the accessory building lot coverage limit that we currently have. I believe we keep the limitation that the detached ADU building footprint can't exceed the existing home footprint. I'm torn with the living area limit. That on the one hand, I'd prefer to keep it a little bit smaller than that. But on the other hand, I think that I'm interested more in the footprint than I am in the total living size. If somebody puts a 1,500 square foot ADU on the lot that's 1,000 square feet of living space that has a 1,000 square foot footprint, whether it's the second story up or the second story down, that doesn't bother me as much as just a large 1,500 square foot single story ground floor. To me, that's a very different look and feel. I'm concerned about adding in an additional footprint requirement, though, because that starts causing problems. I think you pointed this out last time when we initially discussed this, Rob, that when you're talking about converting part of an existing accessory building into a detached ADU, that starts getting weird when you're talking about footprints. So I'm not sure yet with regard to the total living space.
Councilmember Campbell.
I'm on board with what the Planning Commission recommended. I believe they put a lot of work. I watched those meetings, and I believe the decision they came to was the correct decision. I would like to keep the limitation of the DADUs. Brittany?
No, I don't like the word.
Footprint cannot exceed existing home footprint. I think that just makes sense. It's an accessory building. It's not the main building. And so those two, second and third bullet point.
Councilmember Rice.
So there's going to take a couple of, some of this is thinking out loud, but so when you keep limitation of the DADU building footprint cannot exceed an existing home footprint, okay, except we have some homes in Highland that are 10 to 12, 13,000 square feet. 3 of them live not more than a, and I understand that. I get it. But I worry about that they'll see that and not the rest. Now, if you remember last time, I sent you a photo of my very first home in American Fork, and actually Kim asked me she texted me a really good question. I don't know if she was here, but she texted me a really good question because the initial floor space was 1,158 square feet. With the garage, I figured it would be close to 1,500. I'm sure it's about 400 square feet garage. And I sent each one of you that, and I hope you didn't mind, but I wanted you to put that in perspective of that's what that looks like. That's a full-size home. Now, she asked a really good question. She said, I think Zillow, I don't know where you got it from. Zillow, one of them is saying it's 2,200 square feet. So if they have a basement, and I'm assuming that some will, maybe, It was, because I added a family room, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom downstairs. So it did come to about 2,200 square feet, give or take. I'm really locked on 1150. Do I want to die on this hill? No, I still think 1,250 square feet is just too large. 1,500 square feet is very large. It's just too large, especially if, you know, in a kitchen, if we're going to make it a kitchenette, or if we're going to, you know, with limited outlets, which I keep hearing. I don't know, like, not a full oven. Not the, I don't know the word. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to reiterate that, because I just think, I guess I could go 1,250, but I just still think that's really big. And I lived there with my 4 sons and myself for 5 or 6 years. So it was lots of room, I felt. And I've already addressed the basement. I'm just assuming that you're allowing that. We'll allow that, right? To dig a basement, okay? On a corner, and I went out and actually measured that on Sunday. The gentleman who presented first, and he and I talked. So I don't know if we want to, and I guess this is what I'm asking council. I'm not really suggesting this, but on the corner, on a corner lot with a busy street, I think Rob and I talked about this as well. And if we allow it to go back further and not have windows, so they're not looking down into, but again, you're at a 2-story big garage. So I'm just kind of putting that out there. You know, if you want to make some kind of a recommendation on that. I'm still a little bit hooked on, well, I really don't want a 2-story, and I know we've gone 25 feet, but I've driven around and seen some interesting things in Lehigh, and without disparaging, and American Fork, not disparaging any city, but, and then, you know, some of these, like pool houses where they already have a little kitchenette. I don't know if you want to grandfather those in or allow that, or even grandfather in some of the larger garages that could have a apartment up above the garage. I mean, if you want to know what I'm talking about, come over to my house and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because there's 2 really large garages, one of which they could have an apartment upstairs. There's already several houses that are already doing this. So I don't know how, well, I just think we're going to run into some problems, you know, if we don't grandfather a couple of those in. But I'm with Dr. Smith on this. I think it's a hit a little bit on, you know, subdividing. He used the word, I think, subdividing Highland. I don't like it. I sit on a ½ acre on a corner. This does not apply to me because there's no way it would fit. I have a weird size lot, but it's not for me. But I am, you know, we've allowed one other homeowner to put a garage kind of close to a busy street. Maybe it was you, Aaron, I was talking to about that. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I just really don't want to go bigger than 1,200 square feet, because that's, if they put a basement in, that's probably 2,200 to 2,400 square feet. That's a lot. I think that's, in my world, that's large. So that's really all I have, I think.
Can I clarify or ask a clarifying question, Rob? If council moved forward with a 1,250 square foot limit, would that include basement plus the main living level if they did a basement?
Anything connected to the detached ADU counts, except for essentially the garage won't count against it. If you have an access stairway leading to it, won't count against it. Your HVAC room won't count. But if you have like a room, I have seen some interesting accessory buildings. If you have, a detached ADU, like on a second story, and you have a basement second room that's only like a pool room, that's only accessible from the outside, we wouldn't count that because it's not actually connected to the ADU. But if it's all connected and it goes down to the basement, that would all count against the 1250.
So in other words, I'm sorry, go ahead, Erin, beg your pardon.
So if it's like, 625, just directly, that's 1250, that's all they get.
That's all they get.
That's all so we're not going to allow 1250.
Not 1250 plus, it is 1250 total.
Total.
Wherever you
Got it.
place it within the building, basement, first, second
Okay.
story, it is 1250 total.
Well, and I'm still glad I said that about the home I sent you because I didn't want to disseminate false information. So that's good. I mean, that I would rather go with 1,200, but I'm not going to fight over 50 square feet.
Councilmember Rodella.
I just appreciate you guys sending me what other cities have done. So it just kind of gives me a perspective, especially our neighboring ones, Alpine, 1,200 living space limit max, Bountiful 1,250, Lehigh, coverage limit of 30% rear yard. There's some really good numbers in here of what's being showcased. I think 1,250 is the highest I would go on this. I mean, I even think 1,200 going with Alpine, which has bigger houses, bigger yards, bigger houses, and they're limiting it at 1,200. So you did say something where, okay, so if we did 1,250, you have a basement or you don't have a basement, so you could put an accessory apartment that's 1,250 square feet, and then you talked about a garage. Is that the garage we're talking about to the main house?
No, so theoretically you could have, and I think this would actually be very common, a detached garage that has a stairway going up to a second story and all the living space is on the second story.
So you could have 1,250 living space on the second story.
On the second story and
then a garage down below.
So
Okay.
long as the entire building still fit under the size of the house footprint and within the lot coverage limit.
And within the height limit of 25.
And within the height limit of 25 feet.
Okay. Gotcha. So I wanted to just clarify, like the garage bottom,
Yes.
then that's on top. It wasn't 1,250 plus a garage on the side.
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
Rob, do you have what you need, or do you still need clarification on this size?
I heard a majority in favor of the 1,250 or perhaps less. And that's the thing I want to clarify because Councilmember Rice said 1,150. Councilmember Rodella said 1,200. And
So let's just say what that is. So Kim, what's the number for you?
No more than 1,250.
1,250. Councilmember Smith?
No more than 1,250.
Councilmember Courtney?
Yeah, I'd go with 1,250.
Councilmember Campbell?
1,250 for lots 1 acre and below, but for bigger lots, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 acres, 1,500 seems fine.
Okay. Councilmember Rice?
So I have a question before I answer that. I'm sorry. But what Kim just asked, that does or does not, it does not include the garage?
If the garage is on the bottom, and then you have stairs up top. Which I think a lot of people will do, is they build a garage and then they have a living space above the garage.
Right.
So that does not include the garage space, and then your living space is 1,250 above
Correct.
it.
But if you have a gotcha.
Basement though,
Well,
the basement counts
the
towards the
basement
1,250.
counts, but the garage, so let's say you do 600 feet up, 600 feet down, and then you have a garage on to the side.
You can't do that, not to the
Can't do
side.
that,
No.
correct?
The garage is
that what
never-
we're thinking?
we're just never going to count the garage as part of the detached ADU. So that 1,250 will never include a garage space.
That's
It
just
does
living
count
space.
against the other two limits, which are how much of the lot can you cover with this building?
Okay.
So
That's right.
even if you can have 1,250, you're going to have to fit that and a garage somehow still within the limit of 5% of the lot. However you can figure that to make it work.
So if you put a big garage on it, it's not going to be bigger than the existing home.
Correct. And that's going to be something that some people converting existing structures, some of them might have a smaller home and a really large detached garage, because we have a few of those in Highland, and they're not going to be able to add a detached ADU there. They're going to have to figure out some other way of doing it, or maybe it just won't be an option for them.
But I know several garages that are bigger than the house.
Yes, that's what we're saying, is they may not be able to put a detached ADU in that garage then.
You have to remember I came up from 1150, so I'm at 12. I'm alone again.
So it looks like you've got 3 at 1250. So is that good enough?
That is good
And
enough.
I heard correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's all we have. So we are ready to move to closed session. I have a birthday party I still have to throw tonight. So just if you would keep that in mind as we move quickly to closed session.
I'll make that motion. I move that the Highland City Council recess to the executive conference room, which I hope is cooler, to convene in a closed meeting to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation in the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code annotated 52-4-205.
I'll second.
Okay, that was Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Rodella. We need to do a roll call vote, starting with you, Kim.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
Liz, we're in closed session quickly. We already took our break.